guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Do you want to play psycho? What are you waiting for? Can I be the helpless victim?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Don't fall asleep.
Excellent.
Welcome back, gays, schools, and everyone in between to our podcast, The Horror Bandwagon. The podcast where I make my scared cat skeptical yet wonderful fiance watch horror movies with me.
That's me. I'm the fiance.
My name is Sergio.
And my name is Cody.
And we are boys for horror analysis,
Criticism.
and spooky
And sometimes kooky.
entertainment. And Cody, my dear, what are we doing for today?
Well, guys, in honor of Scream 6 coming out, we have decided it's time to finally sit down and talk about Scream 5.
Finally. Now, if you guys haven't heard, we already covered Scream 1 through 4. We had some fabulous guests on for that. But that was like, what, a year ago?
Yes, in the run-up
my
to Scream
God.
5.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was like leading up to Scream 5. So we're here on the cusp of Scream 6, and we figured it'd be only fitting that we talk about Scream 5 and dive deep into that. But before we do that, we're not doing this alone. We needed some reinforcements, and what better way to tackle this iconic movie with an iconic guest. One of our favorite guests. It is Nicksaysboo.
Hi, it's me. I'm not the fiance, but I'm the third.
We got a third, we got a fourth. We're just adding to the pile.
Exactly. Thank you guys for having me. I had so much fun last time. I had so much fun.
Let me tell you, the amount of people that came at us and were like, you guys analyzed Halloween Ends. Like we cut that apart. We talked really deep about it. Do you think that we're gonna do the same thing for Scream 5?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because I'm constantly talking about Scream anyway. So yes, that was one of the things that I was most excited about coming back. Because I was like, last time we didn't shut up.
Oh no. No,
I'm ready.
guys, that was like a 3 or so hour podcast that we dwindled down to like 2.5. But we talked a lot about Halloween Ends, and I'm really happy about that. But I feel this one might be longer because Scream 5, there's just so much to it that we can talk about.
Yeah, the number of times that I've watched this movie to the point where, like, literally, I feel like if I sit down and were to try and like type out the script word for word, action beat by act, it's a sickness. I think I have a sickness when it comes to this movie. So yeah, it might be a long one.
See, I am known to have really bad memory, so I feel like I can watch a movie, and people don't believe me. Like, I really can rewatch a movie and feel like it's the first time that I'm watching it.
It's true. We'll be watching a movie that you've seen a million times and I've seen once. And I'll just be like, oh yeah, this, I mean, of course we knew this was going to happen. And here's like, what?
I do that too. Like the other day I had on Scream 2 and I was like listening to it from my headphones and I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking and like Cici gets tossed off the balcony. I'm like, oh, Cici girl.
Every
no.
time. Every time. Well, we are going to go deep into Scream 5, and we're going to talk a little bit about Scream 6, just a little bit. But before we do that, Nick, take some time to let the folks at home or who's listening on podcast form where they can find you.
So you could find me on YouTube. I have a reaction channel that is Nicksaysboo. I do primarily horror because that's sort of my gig. But, occasionally I have, me being a sopping mess over something like The Notebook or some Marvel stuff or stuff like that. But you could also find me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, also Nicksaysboo. And if you want to be generous, you could help me pay my rent and you could check me out on Patreon, also Nicksaysboo.
And you're always on top of your Patreon. Like, you have a ton of stuff on there, like full-length reactions to like TV shows that you're not putting on YouTube. So guys, head over there. Sign yourself up.
Oh yeah, I like money, but I don't got all that time to edit. I work a lot of jobs.
But overall, let's get into what you feel about the Scream franchise. So in a nutshell, what does the Scream franchise mean to you?
So while the original Halloween is my favorite movie of all time, the Scream franchise it's really close up there with how much I love Halloween. And it's because the original Scream, like opening weekend, I would have been like 5 turning 6 maybe. I saw that in theaters. I should not have seen that in theaters at that age, but I saw that in theaters. I saw all of them in theaters on opening weekend. So it's sort of just been a tradition. It's been it's a big thing with my mom. She loves horror movies too. So she quotes them just like I do. So we kind of grew up just having conversations back and forth and referencing all of the movies. And it's such a fun franchise because each one offers something a little bit different, and you can feel the care and dedication that was put into each installment. And it's also kind of a rarity when it comes to bigger franchise because there's not a single movie in this franchise that's bad. Like every movie is good.
It's fair. And I've heard reviewers say that, oh, this is my least favorite Scream, but honestly, that's not saying much because they're all good. They're all watchable. They're all, pretty much top tier, but one's just not the most favorite that you rewatch every time. With that being said, do you think, is there a favorite? Is there a standout to you that you always have to rewatch more than the others?
Scream 2. 100%. Scream 2 is that girl for me. I remember, because it's funny, like you said earlier, like you have a bad memory. I have a bad memory too, but what is that? Like, I can't remember things that just happened to me, but I can remember things from farther away.
Is that short-term memory loss?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm basically like Dory. So I remember with Scream 2, me and my mom and some family friends, we went to, I think it was like a Baker Square restaurant or something like that before we went and saw the movie. And I remember we were sitting there, we were talking about how excited we were to watch the movie, and the waitress comes up and we were talking to the waitress about it. And I cracked some joke about Cici's phone, like the clear phone. And then the waitress started laughing so hard that she dropped, she had the tray in her hand with all of our food and dropped the tray everywhere, and all of our food was all over the floor.
That poor woman.
I don't know what it is, but it just stuck in my mind. But Scream 2 it's got, I love the cast of the first one, but Scream 2 has Sarah Michelle Gellar. The cast of the second one is so good. I think it's scarier. It has, so far, the best chase scenes in the franchise.
Yes.
It feels a little bit more adult, more than the first one, which I really, really like. And the score and the costume. And Mrs. Loomis.
Oh my God. I have to agree with you. Scream 2 is one of my favorites. It's mainly because, as you said, the cast is just bigger. It seems a bit more epic now that we have the first one, but now it's just has grown upon itself. And I just have a soft spot for it. I think it may be due to nostalgia, but I really do love Scream 2. Recently, I've heard how Scream 3 is kind of rising up in the ranks of people, which is fair because Scream 3 is not as bad as people say it is.
Yeah.
But Scream 2, as a result, has been kind of, I've heard, or some people heard, going down in rankings, and I don't get it. I still think it's a solid sequel.
Yeah, I feel like it fluctuates over time. Typically, maybe the people who aren't the most diehard fans of the franchise, just sort of casual fans, they'll typically say the original is their favorite. And then I think as you kind of start to get a little bit deeper into the fandom, it's always sort of been a battle between 2 and 4. And then 3 has typically been the one that's everyone's we don't talk about 3. And then 5 has, it's newer, but it's kind of still finding its footing because you have the naysayers because it's not Wes Craven, and you got Sam is the new main character and stuff like that. So I'm sure it'll fluctuate. It'll be different in 2 years from now. It'll be by the time we get Scream 10 or something, it'll be different. So
with the franchise as a whole, would there be anything different that you would change? Not including Scream 5.
I think I would have, controversial opinion, I would have killed off one of the main 3 in
earlier on.
Yeah, earlier on.
Oh, okay.
I'm not, Sydney is one thing, but I'm not a fan of plot armor, especially with this franchise, because I know there's a lot of people that were upset that they killed Randy in Scream 2, but I feel that elevated the movie because it was a character that everyone liked. But it hammers in nobody is supposed to be safe. I don't feel tension if these characters are on the screen and I know that they're not going to die.
Honestly, I agree with you. And you know, I think the one character that a lot of people go back to has to be Dewey. Um, he has died so many times, but like with the plot armor, it's like, no, he's fine. We're bringing him back. I think he should have died in Scream 3. I think Scream 3 needed a legacy character to die in that movie because it's at the time it was the last of the three. It was a, you know, the final chapter, at least for at that time, and they talked about how like trilogies, it's the last one, anything can happen. Sydney, you can die, like, you know, it's one of those things, and I really hoped that they would have done it at that time.
Yeah, I feel like they almost thought that they were checking that box by killing Cotton.
Yeah,
Like, I
like
feel like
right
they
at the bat.
considered him a legacy character. I mean,
Mhm.
I guess he is. Like, he was technically in the first one
Yeah.
for like 3 seconds, but at the bare minimum, I would have killed probably Gale in 4.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I could have definitely seen that. You know, because the movie did set her up in 4 to be in danger a couple times. I agree with you. I think it would have elevated things a little bit just to.
But the thing is, like, they did it. Like, they did it. Like, especially with Dewey. Like, in my mind, when I watched those movies, he died, and I was able to move on. But then they took that back, and then I'm like, okay, well now I'm connected to this character, which is, I think, why Scream 5 hits a little bit different. I don't know why, because I always expected Dewey to die, but when it happens in Scream 5, they actually do it, and I'm like, wait, no, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, well, I maybe not. I mean, I guess we'll get to this later. Maybe while I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of how they did it
Mhm.
in 5, there's some believability aspects to it, but I think I knew that he was going to not like spoiler alert, knew he was going to die, but like I could just tell. I was like, because
Oh
Wes
yeah.
Craven was the only thing that was keeping him alive,
Mhm.
and I was like, he's not around anymore. God rest his soul. But I knew that with how much the directors talked about their love and adoration specifically for the first 2 films, I was
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, one of them's going 100%.
Well, and I think that was our call too before we went and saw the movie. Was
Yeah.
that we felt that one of the original 3 was going to die, and that was probably going to be Dewey.
Yeah.
I think I would have like, I know that I said I would have killed Gale in 4, but I think for myself, what I probably would have done is killed Gale in 5 and then take out Dewey in 6, because I feel like that would have
Really?
it would have been a little bit more richer from a narrative standpoint to see how Dewey reacts and becomes a different person based upon Gale dying. I feel like I
Yeah.
really would have liked to see that.
But it may also, like, if you think of it like in her perspective, how, you know, tough she is and how much of like a wall she always builds. It seems like, especially at the end of Scream 5, and we'll talk about it, but at the end of Scream 5, it seems like she's no longer about the reporting and the books, and she wants to focus on Dewey, and she's changing her perspective. I don't know if it took all 5 movies, because I do think Gale has grown as a character since the first one significantly, but maybe Dewey's death in Scream 5 was needed for now to kind of have a focus on her for Scream 6, which does make me interested.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say too. Is I feel like the problem with keeping Dewey alive and killing Gale instead is that you would still have this connection to Woodsboro, and I know that they wanted to kind of move away from that, and because it would not be believable if you were to say, well, you know, Gale died, so Dewey's going to try to go make it in New York without her when he couldn't hack it before, and
You have when he says he couldn't hack it, Cody was like,
I carry a lot of disdain for that phrase.
But I mean, no, I agree with you. I think like setting wise, it makes sense that Dewey, his character arc ended in Woodsboro, since that seems to be where he was supposed to be according to them. So it does make sense in that respect. I would just be curious. I mean, maybe it would actually, now that I'm thinking about it, if they were to have killed Gale in 4, I feel like that almost would have made it more, not believable, but it would have made more sense in a way how we saw Dewey in 5. Like I could see him becoming like an alcoholic shut-in because he lost Gale as well.
All I know is that new merch coming out soon, Dewey pincushion. That's it.
You? That is dark-sided.
With that being said, it's now time for our Body Appetizers. And this segment is where we get into the movie and talk about a bit of tidbits. So Scream 2022 was released on January 14th, 2022. The budget was $24 million. Opening weekend, it made a little bit over $30 million and grossed overall over $140 million. I know this was a very big thing. And of course, probably I don't know if they were like already in talks about making Scream 6 already before the numbers came by, but it definitely made a big impact that people were like, they love Scream, get it out there.
Yeah, from my understanding, I shan't reveal my sources,
Ooh.
but from my understanding, like I think it was like by opening weekend, like they had already technically gotten the green light for 6.
Yeah.
Like the script for 6 was almost completely written, obviously before they had to rewrite stuff to write out Sydney's character. But yeah, it's like, I feel like that's sort of the thing with sequels is oftentimes like they will have been greenlit and they already have production running behind the scenes prepping for the next one before it's announced to the public. So the public seems to always think like, oh, this morning, like it was announced that they're making a new one, as if that decision just happened yesterday. Yeah, like they were, I think it was either opening weekend or even the week before release that they had already knew that they were getting 6 and were almost done with the script.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, you look at the way that this movie ended with so many people still alive. It's asking for a sequel.
Do you think
Too
there's
many people alive?
honestly, yeah. Do you think that they're making way for 8? Wait, no.
7.
7. You think they're making a 7?
Yeah, I mean, I see everybody online talking about how it's supposed to be a trilogy. I don't really remember seeing anything with the directors and the writers mentioning a trilogy, but I would assume that that's undoubtedly what they're doing. And then I would imagine, assuming that they've already worked out a deal and they can work out a deal, I would imagine that Neve Campbell would be back for part 7. That would make sense to me.
Kind of makes sense to kind of give this generation and their characters their own trilogy. How I see it is kind of like the trilogy, then 4 is like a little bridge that goes into 5, 6, 7, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like we check in with the characters with 4 and then go into like a new era of Scream.
Yeah, well, and I actually think narratively, Scream 5 did that more than Scream 4 because now it really did feel like a passing of the torch movie to me.
Scream 5?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
Scream
think so.
5 felt like more of the passing of the torch than 4 did. But I guess 4 works in regards to what they were commenting on with like remakes, and because Requels was 5, so it was just remakes. I guess.
Yeah, and like
So
a
it makes
little bit of
sense.
torture porn movies at that time. But yeah, I think this one
Drag
was like
Race season 1
oh yeah.
with the filter.
Oh my god. I wish we had. Have they ever explained that, like on record, being like, "Oh, we just thought it was funny."
I don't think so. I just say Vaseline.
Someone
it's
accidentally put Vaseline on the whole entire movie. We're like, "Fuck it, just release it that way." I
We
always
already did
think
the opening. We can't afford to redo it, so just make the whole film like this.
I always have a theory that they're at the end of some movie. It was like, "Oh, 4 was just a dream. It was just a dream." Sydney was dreaming 4 its entirety.
I mean, it does kind of have like that old TV movie dreamlike effect to it.
Yeah.
With the filter, which apparently the film itself was not filmed with the filter. Like the filter was something added in post. And if I remember correctly, like they weren't necessarily like fully aware that it was happening until they saw it. So I feel like somewhere out there is a version of the movie that exists without that filter, and I want it.
So this movie was written by mostly the team of Radio Silence. As you probably know because you just reacted to it. VHS, one of the segments, was done by Radio Silence, and they starred in it. At the end, how did you feel about that?
Well, you saw with the
Yep.
oh my god, Torment. That movie was pure torment to me. I don't know. I mean, I've seen so many movies. I do not know why it scared me as much as it did.
Yeah.
But it was funny, like, because I didn't even know that each segment was by like a big horror person.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to the last one, and I'm like, why does that guy look so familiar to me? And then I'm like, kind of putting two and two together, and I was like, that's Radio Silence.
Yeah.
And that makes me, like, knowing what I know about 5 and kind of how they approached it with being we're paying homage to everything that came before.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing what they did in Ready or Not and seeing what they did in their segment with VHS has me so excited for Scream 6, because they've said multiple times at this point, like, 5 was us honoring everything that came prior.
Yeah.
6 is our movie.
Exactly.
So seeing how they scared the shit out of me with VHS, I am terrified, but I'm so excited for 6 because I know that they're going to bring it.
See, I felt the pressure for them for Scream 5. You know, like, I felt that they had the fans really on the edge of like, okay, what are you going to give us? It's the first one without Wes Craven. Like, what is going to happen? And I felt for them during that. And I love that they were able to kind of work in their feelings about working on it within the dialogue of the movie, which like kind of makes sense with everything. But I always felt like I trusted Radio Silence with this franchise. I felt like you have VHS, which is like kind of gritty, but it had like its fun moments, but also terrifying at the same time. And the visuals that they gave you, I trusted them with that, but also like Ready or Not, which also like had its gruesome moments. It was thrilling and horrifying and funny, which is what Scream can be also at the same time.
And I'm really excited for that reason too, because Ready or Not was one of the first new movies that we saw when I was first getting into horror movies.
Oh yeah, we went to go see it in theaters,
and I loved it.
I was like one of our first few dates.
It was one of the first horror movies, like newer ones that we had seen when they were coming out that I loved. So I'm also really excited for Scream 6.
I feel like they were like a really perfect fit too, because I also saw Ready or Not in theaters, and I remember saying to my friend just after watching that movie, I was like, this feels like a Scream movie. And then it was shortly later that they announced that Radio Silence was doing it, and I was like, this is a perfect fit, because I really felt like they properly. I mean, while I have issues with all the movies, but while there's certain things that I have issues with 5, I do think that Radio Silence, they understand the voice of the franchise. They understand how the characters talk and how to properly balance the humor and the horror. Because I think, at least for myself, something that I always hear people saying is, oh, it's a horror comedy. I'm like, no, it's a horror movie that has comedic elements to it. Now,
yeah, exactly.
3 is more on the comedy scale and elements of 4, but 5, despite some of its flaws, I think that 5 is closest to 1 and 2 in terms of balancing the tones. So I think that they were a really, really good fit.
So Scream 5 was written by James Vanderbilt, who also contributed to Zodiac, White House Down, Independence Day Resurgence, The Amazing Spider-Man, and produced Ready or Not. Guy Busick also worked on Ready or Not, Castle Rock, and he's working on the upcoming Final Destination 6, which I'm excited about. Are you a fan of the Final Destination movies?
Not the 4th one, but the rest of them, yep.
Which one was the 4th one?
Why are you asking me?
Oh yeah, he got dragged. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, the 4th one, we don't talk about the 4th one.
3 for me is always going to be so. I think that was, I want to say I was like in high school when that came out, and I went to see it with friends. That was so freaking fun. I love that movie, Final Destination 3, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead as the lead.
The first 3 are definitely my favorite. 5 is pretty good. 4 is, we don't talk about 4. But there's a sort of like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon connection with Scream, because the main guy from 4 is one of the main characters in the first season of the Scream TV series.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So there is a little bit of a connection there.
I love that. So it was directed by Matt Bettinelli Open. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Again, Radio Silence, VHS, Ready or Not, Southbound, which is I think another anthology movie which they contributed to, and they have an upcoming film called Escape from New York coming out. Tyler Gillette, VHS, Ready or Not, Southbound. They work together on that.
Escape from New York, like the John Carpenter movie?
I think so. I think they're remaking it.
I should probably watch the John Carpenter movie.
Don't worry, we haven't either. Reactions coming from us soon.
Yeah, that's a good. No, I need to write that down. That's a good thing to react to because I have not seen that movie. Ooh.
All right, and let's get over to the cast. Who is starring in this movie? Who knows? Cody, take over.
All right, so we have Nev Campbell as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox as Gail Weathers, David Arquette as Dewey Riley, Melissa Barrera as Sam Carpenter, Jack Quaid as Richie Kirsch, Mikey Madison as Amber Freeman, Jenna Ortega as Tara Carpenter, Dylan Minette as Wes Hicks, Jasmine Savoy Brown as Mindy Meeks Martin, Mason Gooding as Chad Meeks Martin, Sonia Amar as Liv McKenzie, Marley Shelton as Judy Hicks, Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis, Kyle Gallner as Vince Schneider, Heather Matarazzo as Martha Meeks, and Roger L. Jackson as the voice of Ghostface.
What a cast. Nick, when this cast first came out, were you aware of any of them? Like, did someone stand out and I'm like, oh my God, I know them from this thing?
Kyle Gallner.
Oh yeah.
I mean, my thoughts of Kyle Gallner got more screen time than Kyle Gallner got in the movie.
Oh yeah.
But like I remembered him. Obviously, like, he was in the Nightmare on Elm Street thing, but I loved him from Jennifer's Body.
Yeah.
Jenna Ortega. It's funny with Jenna Ortega because like I had seen her in You,
Same.
and I thought she was fine, and then I did not like the second Babysitter movie, and I didn't really like her character in that movie.
Oh no.
But so I was like, we'll see. But then she blew me away in Scream 5, and I've been obsessed with her ever since. And I've watched Wednesday, and I've watched tons of her other stuff. And then obviously Mason Gooding. I mean, there multiple uses of the word stand out, stand up. If you can catch it's
however you like to put it.
Gooding.
That man is too like he's got to know that we're all just like thirsting for him because of how like I don't know if you follow him on social, but like the things that he does, he's working out, he's shirtless most of the time, plus he loves dogs, plus he's like a bit of a nerd at the same time. Oh my God.
Oh yes, he loves dogs. I will dress up like a dog. It'll be a furry moment. I will do whatever I need to do.
You hear that, Mason Gooding? You're getting a puppy
Call
soon.
me Mason.
It's a shame because I think the show The Boys came out before Scream. So we only saw it until after Scream and realized that Jack Quaid was in that show, and he's phenomenal in that show. I really like him. I also like him in Scream 5. Let's just be clear. I actually really do like him in this movie. But I wish I saw The Boys first.
Yeah, I forgot that he was in it, but yes, I've watched The Boys, and I was happy that he was in it because he's got a lot of range. So
yeah. Something that I didn't know until after the fact was Mickey Madison, and Mickey or Mikey?
I just want to be. I just want
Mikey. Mikey Madison. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which like once I found that out, I was like, oh my God, she's the woman who gets set on fire. And she's crazy in that movie, which kind of made it feel like they kind of gave it away already because she was a killer in that movie. And they cast her in a movie where it's a whodunit of who is the killer. But I did love her in that movie.
Yeah, I didn't see, because I ended up doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for Patreon because I had not seen it. And that movie is long. It's a long movie. And sure. I remember reading like people saying before 5 came out that they had a feeling that she was going to be one of the killers because of the fact that she had obviously the range to pull that off. Because that's sort of like, at least for me, a telltale way to figure out beforehand, just kind of looking at the cast list of who it might be, because whoever they cast for the killer has to be able to have like play crazy
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially
And I
because we've had
knew
so many killers in the past that really have pulled that off.
exactly. And I like with Richie, with Jack Quaid, I was like, I just kept flashing back to the number of times that I have seen him play a lovable goofball
Yeah.
Huey, but then also like covered in blood. And I'm like, okay, I think he might be one of our suspects. And then when everybody was talking about Mikey being in Once Upon a Time and being one of the killers, I was like, that might be a little bit too obvious. But then I saw a shot of somebody on fire in the trailer, and I was like, damn it.
And, you know, that's a whole other thing. The trailer itself was a very, very big misstep. Now, let me tell you right now, whoever is behind the marketing for Scream 6, you are God.
It is so good.
Raise
so
hire
good.
them for because this is what getting excited for a slasher film is about. All these different things coming out. Oh my God. Like, I spent $100 for this thing.
I drove over an hour each way to get this damn popcorn bucket, and I don't even like popcorn.
Like, do you see what you're doing to us? Everybody needs to learn from this marketing. Plus, the trailer didn't give away too much, right? I think it was pretty good, except for one thing.
I think I probably know what you're talking about. It does spoil something, but I will say because I always say I'm only going to watch one trailer and then I'm not going to watch it again and I'm not going to look at anything. I don't have that strength.
I know, me too.
But
me too.
so I have rewatched the trailers and all this stuff multiple times. But one thing that I will say people should feel very confident in is I think they learned their lesson with the trailer for 5, because there's multiple things in the trailers for 6 that I've noticed across like the TV spots and stuff where they've CGI'd over characters and they've CGI'd characters into different scenes, like the whole thing with the ladder or whatever that we see in the trailer. There's one shot of Jasmine Savoy Brown going across it, and then Ghostface like enters the frame behind her.
Yeah.
And then there's in one of the TV spots, it's a different character going across, but it's the exact same shot of Ghostface entering the frame behind. And I was like, I don't know which one's real.
That's the thing. They're trying to psych us out. They're kind of putting things in different order. So like if people are to analyze it, you're like, oh, I can't really put 2 and 2 together. On the day that the trailer came out, there is like a millisecond of something being revealed that I think they took out for other trailers, because we ended up seeing other trailers, and that millisecond of a shot we did not see in other trailers, which is smart. I'm glad that they caught that in time. But also with just like some dialogue, it seemed a little choppy. How I don't know if you heard the Jenna Ortega one.
Yeah, we've got to lure him in. Yeah, I'm like, is she having a stroke? Why?
It's hilarious, but honestly, do what you need to do in order for us to not know what the fuck's going on. You know.
But there's a couple like I rewatched the Scream 5 trailer last night, and I noticed that there is a couple shots like of scenes that are in that trailer that are not in the movie, and different takes with dialogue. That they did not actually have in the movie. Because I noticed the same thing with 6, like where Gail says it's a shrine. In one of the TV spots, it's a completely different shot of her saying that.
Yeah. The big one for me for Scream 5 is it's an honor. That line, which was originally I thought was being said to Sydney in the trailer, but it ended up being to Dewey, which also it's an honor, iconic line. I love it. And just how Roger Jackson delivers it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me from the Scream 5 trailer that I was kind of glad at least it didn't seem like we had any reveals like this for the Scream 6 trailer was the spinning shot when it like backs out from Sam being in Stu's house. I remember we watched that and I was like, why did they show us that? Like you could tell even from the trailer, they just revealed something huge that was supposed to be a gotcha moment in the movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way watching the Scream 6 trailer. I remember commenting about how realistic the bodega scene seems, where like everyone's just completely ignoring what is happening around them. It was a very New York thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have been, as much as I have enjoyed the rest of the marketing, I would have even been fine with them just having that initial teaser trailer with that scene on the subway.
Yeah, that was good for me. I mean, hey, if they gave us a second trailer, but honestly, that first one would have been fine for me to hold me over. But also, I mean, I don't know your thoughts about Demi Lovato, but I love that they have an original song for the soundtrack. And I wish, like, for me, the first movie soundtrack is so near and dear to my heart because there's a lot of bangers on that. And it just reminds me of 1996 and that time and just the movie in general. And so, like, I wish Scream 5 had, like, you know, soundtrack with original songs from artists. But I think it was only one song that they had, which was from, what's his face? Dylan Minette's band.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the same song. Is that Fall Out of Love? Because I think that's the one that plays over the end
It's at the
credits.
end credits, yeah.
Is that his band?
Yeah, it's his band.
Oh, because I was talking about that the other day with a friend, and I'm like, oh, I don't think I've ever heard that song. And he's like, well, you've watched the credits. And I was like, well, like once. And I was like, and then I listened to the song, and I was like, I have no memory of this song. As much as I've watched this movie, I have no memory of this song.
Yeah,
but I do agree with you.
I'm sure Dylan Minette's band is fabulous. It just wasn't like like those end credits, like they have a pretty good bop at the end, like to round up the movie. That was a little bit of a slower song, I think.
I don't remember it either. I'm trying to think about it. Am I just blank slate?
Yeah, it's the only one that I can't remember because I'm thinking like the end of the first one is First Cool Hive by Moby, I believe.
First Cool Hive into Whisper to a Scream as the actual end credits. Which First Cool Hive is an awesome song to end that movie. I could go into that on its own, but
yeah, and then I think 2 is She Said.
Yeah.
3 is Red Right Hand.
Yes.
4 is Bad Karma, and then 5 is whatever Fall Out of Love is.
Fall Out of Love by Dylan Minette's band. Go listen.
Something like that. But
available on iTunes.
Demi Lovato is Demi Lovato, but
we have not heard the song yet. Have you heard the song?
It's a good song. It's a good song, and it's actually a really, really fun video. Which I was like, this again with the marketing and the way that they are doing this movie. When you watch the video, like I'm assuming you've seen the Creed video for Scream 3.
Yes.
I know you better get away from that.
Ooh, oh no.
Demon. Anyways, I loved that they had like a miniature movie for this music video for 3, like with Dewey and everything like that. So I was so pleased because with the Demi Lovato song, like getting chased around by Ghostface, there's all these new clips from the movies and stuff like that. So it's it's a really good song.
I love that. And I heard like a little snippet, and honestly, I felt, the song reminds me of like early 2000s, like an early 2000s
like
song.
pop punk, yeah.
Pop punk. And I was like, oh, this reminds me, and I feel like if this was, that would have been perfect for the Scream 4 soundtrack. But I love it that it's here for us now, and I love that they have a music video. We'll probably watch the music video later. If only, like, we would do a reaction, but if only music copyright wasn't so like strict on us, we would. But
that's why I do reactions to movies now.
Yeah. Which
After, like,
sometimes
3
even
videos.
that isn't good.
Yeah, Megan.
All right. Well, that was our bloody appetizers. We're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, we're going to go into our meats and potatoes. So stay tuned. Welcome back, ghouls. It is now time to go into our
Meats and Potatoes
segment.
And this is a segment where we actually go into the movie itself.
Starting off with this opening scene, we start off with Jenna Ortega. What are your overall thoughts of this opener?
I love the phone call itself. I love getting Roger L. Jackson back to doing normal talking versus just immediately going into Ghostface
See,
persona.
that was a gag for me because he picked up the phone. I thought it was gonna be as usual, and then immediately like diverts us with like just like a normal talking voice, which I didn't know he could do. I was like, oh shoot, okay.
Well, and it very much harkens back to the original Scream as well, where what's her name? Casey Becker spends
Yes.
some time just talking with him on the phone. You know, that he just
Yeah, he didn't have that like creepy voice.
Yeah.
At first.
Yeah, because I think if you think about it, like a lot of the best phone calls in the franchise have characters where they don't know that they're talking to Ghostface.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I don't know, it makes it scarier. It makes it a little bit more realistic for the audience to able to identify with the characters. But we really haven't seen him have that length of a phone call since the first one.
Yeah.
So I loved that aspect of it. I thought Jenna Ortega did a fantastic job. I loved the trivia questions. I will say it would have been nice, within universe, like if she would have known, if she had watched the Stab movies, which is crazy to me, that anybody living in the town of Woodsboro would not have A, at least seen all of the films, and B, would have their fucking front door unlocked at night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Girl, you were asking for it at that point.
You're in Woodsboro. This is not a safe place anymore.
Exactly. And like if she had like, I feel like it should be, there needs to be like an alert system for the town of Woodsboro. Like everybody just gets an alert, like, guys, there's another one. There's
like a bat signal, just like the Ghostface signal in the sky.
Exactly. Damn it.
It's back again.
But yeah, like, I don't know. With I love the opening. I would say the critique that I have of the opening, though, is it does feel very closed in. And I feel like that is a issue that affects majority of the movie because it, like, me watching it, I can clearly tell that it was a pandemic movie. Because it was filmed very early on. So, like, they try to mirror the shot of Casey, like, when she realizes, like, okay, whoever's on the phone is a fucking creep. And she looks out the window. And then Tara does the same thing. Mm-hmm. But the difference is, like, they don't show you the outside of the house. You have one establishing shot of the house. But then otherwise, other than when she walks into the living room and does something, like, on a shelf, you're primarily in the foyer and the kitchen. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it felt very closed in. And I would have liked a little bit more of a chase. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I loved the opening.
I do like that they mentioned the whole landline business where, like, she's not answering the landline, but she's on her phone texting Amber, which was honestly funny. But I also remember people saying, like, who has landlines anymore? I was like, I feel like a few people still have landlines in their house.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like en masse, like, it's not a super common thing anymore, but people definitely still have them. I mean, there's a lot of places, like, where people will have landlines that they just don't even use. Mm-hmm. Because it comes as part of like a cable package or a package or something like that.
Yeah, when I first moved out here, I also had a landline number attached to me. So every once in a while, I just see like some random spam number pop up on my TV screen, being like, "You're getting a call from this person," which I think would be an interesting thing to explore in like a future Scream movie, where it like comes in on the TV or something instead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how if they will, but how they're going to incorporate like more modern technology with 6, because I felt like they did it pretty well. Like you had the Find My Fam app in 5, and you had the doors that you could control from your phone,
the security
system.
I thought
that was, and they had like this. The movie version of caller ID, where despite it saying unknown caller, under each person's phone call it says maybe Sidney Prescott.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Amber. I'm like, oh okay.
Well, I mean I do like also that they incorporated it even with like when she thinks she's texting Amber, and then all of a sudden they're like, this isn't Amber, even though it probably was just Amber saying this isn't Amber. The thing that I don't understand is she gets a video message, and that video message somehow now syncs up with the ghost face that is on the phone with her, telling her like all this stuff. And I don't quite understand how that was supposed to work. I also don't know how this video message somehow plays for like 5 minutes, and how like was it something that was pre-recorded ahead of time and they just like figured out how the conversation was gonna go? Because the video message, number one, plays forever. Number two, somehow syncs up with this ghost face that is in the house, and it features Amber in it. It almost makes it seem like it's supposed to have switched from a video message to just like a live video feed from the phone of Amber to try to like convince her that Amber's in trouble now.
Well, they also try to kind of quickly kind of cancel all that out by saying she shouldn't let people clone her phones or something along those lines. It was like, okay, I don't think that justifies everything all at once.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with that. Was something that like stuck out to me too, was like specifically like when he's like, I guess someone's got to die now, and she looks down at the message, and that's the point in the video that he raises
where he
the
goes,
knife.
yeah. But then
Where
he's like at the door.
Right. So I was like,
second.
first of all, like that should have been your clue. Like I was looking at a video, not a live stream. I think it could have just been accomplished with pictures. I feel like he just sent a couple pictures of him peeping in through her window. I think that would have been sufficient and alleviated that. So I don't know why they did the video.
Yeah.
But also that should have been a clue. Like, oh, there's two. There's two.
Yeah.
And Amber should have been even more of an obvious target or suspect because, okay, so they somehow got your phone, and we now have video proof that they were outside of your house, thus meaning you are a target. And she doesn't seem to care very much.
No,
she was killer, but
yeah, I mean, I do have to say I like the like little nods though to the original, like how Jenna Ortega is cooking something on the stove.
She touches the knife.
She touches the knife and the thing. She plays with it in the like knife block. I really appreciated that. I thought it was well done as an opener.
And I think Jenna Ortega she acts the fuck out of this scene.
Yeah.
Especially the latter half where she's like suffering. So that girl is made to be a scream queen. Like her screams, her acting, her crying. Oh my God. Perfect. And we still have little old Ghostface still being klutzy as fuck because I think she like somehow he falls and like hits his head on the table and falls away. I'm like, all right, way to be extra as usual.
Yeah, I mean, she gets in a couple good licks. She hits him with the phone, and then she kicks him off of her, I don't know who that was supposed to be at that point in the costume, but one of them hits their face.
Yeah, which technically, I think it should be Amber.
I thought that it was Jack.
Richie.
That it was Richie.
Richie is still like far away with Melissa Barrera.
Well, no, we see him the next morning, but we know that it's drivable because they drive back the next day. My impression was that because I think at some point you hear, like when she hits him with the phone, you hear a man's voice being hurt when she does that.
That could still be the voice changer.
I don't know.
I feel like it's gone in and out of the franchise when it comes to the actual like grunts and stuff that you hear.
Yeah.
Because like in the first one, like you actually hear Matthew Lillard's voice at one point.
Yeah.
And then in 2, I believe the person that attacks Dewey and Gale in the sound booth thing, I think that's supposed to be Mrs. Loomis. And when Gale hits her with the phone, to me, the voice sounds more feminine. When she gets hit. But I don't think like with 5, I think just about every scene that you do hear him, it does sound like a man's voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, I think Amber did majority of the killing.
Well, I think she did the majority of the killing. I think one of the challenges that this movie would have had to deal with, just from a logistical standpoint, is the height difference between the two. That like you couldn't just have one Ghostface who was very tall, because Jack Quaid is what, like 6'3" or something. He's
a tall man. Yeah, he's at least 6 foot or over.
And Amber is shorter.
That
so,
is
like,
the biggest feedback that people have talked about with this.
You almost have to treat Ghostface as like
his own
as its own entity, regardless of who's in the costume doing the killing, because otherwise it would be way too obvious if you had someone who was like much shorter, much taller, the same height as various other characters in the movie. So
it was much easier with Scream because you had like two. I mean, I think Matthew Lillard was like a little bit taller than Skeet Ulrich, but it was a lot easier that we just had two guys do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you look at the cast for at least the first 3 films, I feel like there's nobody that really stands out as being drastically different in height than anybody else.
Regarding killers?
Yeah, like everybody in the cast sort of seemed to be in and around the same height-ish. I think it was only 4, like with Emma Roberts, that specifically sort of seemed like it was when she pops out and stabs Sydney. Like I'm like that's a child in that costume. Like it looks silly. But I think even with that one, we're supposed to assume that majority was carried out by Charlie. And I guess Charlie is short, or Rory Culkin. Is that Rory Culkin? He's short in real life. He's not as short as her, but I feel like that he kind of could get away with it in the movie.
Yeah,
because she was obviously much tinier. But yeah, with the whole height thing with Amber is sort of something that slightly bothers me. And I guess on the set of 5, because they have addressed this in an interview, that is thanks to Neve Campbell, because they were very concerned with that. With revealing Amber as the killer and her being so short, and Neve Campbell specifically told them, nobody's going to care about this, which was a lie, but nobody is going to care about this. When they put on Ghostface, you become this other entity.
Yeah.
Well, and to their credit, and I know like we have so much more to talk about here, so at the risk of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, I think, on this topic, something they did fairly well is that for the most part, you don't see Ghostface just like standing right next to somebody to do a good height comparison. They're constantly moving or not really standing still in a way that you could tell, oh, this person is clearly much shorter than the last Ghostface that we saw, which I think, was probably an intentional move on their part, but I do think it was fairly effective that we could have these discussions with a couple of kills in the movie about who did the killing. Apart from the ones that, Amber openly admits she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think kind of to plug a channel that I watch, Zach Cherry has his Who Killed Who videos. They are like, he does a lot of research and they're very, very spot on. And
super well thought out.
Most of his analysis of these movies. And I think with 5 specifically, I know there's quite clearly a creative choice that they made with how the stabbing occurs. And I think it's kind of a telltale sign to the audience of like, when there's the stabby, that's supposed to be Amber, which makes sense because if she is, although in the costume she's taller, but she's a tinier person, so it makes sense that she would be stabbing more to kind of try and make up for the lack of strength behind it. But even like, I know a lot of people, I know I myself did in my initial Scream 5 reaction before I watched it 500 more times. But if you go back and like watch the Dewey death scene, like she's not lifting Dewey up. If you actually look at the way it's framed, she's standing on her tippy toes, trying to like get height on him. So it doesn't really bother me as much as it did initially. It more so bothers me towards the end of when like she walks back into the kitchen and then Sydney pulls her down because she's like her head is barely coming up to the cabinet height. I'm like, it's kind of obvious. But
now let's move on to the cast, because after this we're pretty much getting to meet all our cast members, right? We get to meet Sam, Richie. They work at a bowling alley, I believe. And that's where she gets her initial call. And then we also meet our core friend group, which is Tara's friend group. What do you think of this new cast? Like not the actors, but the cast itself, like the characters.
So let me think of it. So I love Tara. I do like the character of Sam. I know a lot of people have issues with the performance and stuff like that, but I like the character of Sam. I mean, honestly, I liked all of the cast. I will say that the friends themselves don't really give me the impression that they like each other.
Oh yeah, they're always at each other's throats.
Yeah,
and I know that I know that everybody loves Mindy. I know it, and I love Jasmine Savoy
No.
Brown. I love her.
What are you saying? What are you saying right now?
But we'll see what happens with Mindy in 6. But I did not like her in 5. I like let me I like I love the one-liners and the snarkiness. Like
Yeah.
I quote that all the time in my real life, like especially her exchange with Richie on the couch and everything
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
But she just seems so apathetic towards everybody. And for a character that is supposed to be this smart horror movie expert, it just I'm like, you're in the middle of a murder spree, you know that you're a target, and you're actively sitting in the Mocker house while you know that there's probably a killer running around outside. That seemed a little weird to me, but I thought it was a good performance. I wasn't a big fan of the character.
See, how you put it actually does make sense. How strong she is in that aspect, and she's just not as aware as she should be.
Yeah.
Which I hope carries into Scream 6, that she actually wasn't as knowledgeable of the horror movies that she, was teaching to everybody as she thought. And maybe it brings up some sort of regret, guilt, into the next movie, and maybe we expand upon her a little bit more, which would be great. I personally love Mindy. I think she was great. I love her whole monologue about requels, and it just seemed, it wasn't so on the nose that it was like, these are the rules for a requel, right? But it was just like her talking to everybody naturally, which I really enjoyed. And I think I just love Jasmine Savoy Brown as an actress, and I think I'm very excited to see where her career goes.
Yeah.
Also, gay representation. We appreciate that.
Yes, we do.
Yes. Mason Gooding is good. I think I wanted to see him do a little bit more in this movie, as opposed to as what we got, which was like when we're not focused on all the legacy characters, and it was a lot about Sam and Richie and Tara. I wish we were able to kind of focus on the friend group a little bit more, and maybe that's where we would have gotten a little bit more of their friendship built up.
I think a lot of the screen time had to go because like how we mentioned earlier, like 5 feels like more of the passing of the torch.
Yeah.
So because of that, there was obviously a large chunk of the screen time that had to be dedicated towards the legacy characters, especially Dewey. And now with Nev not coming back for 6 and Dewey being dead, I think that is going to provide more time that we're able to spend with the rest of the characters to get to know them a little bit more. And even from like the limited like the advertisements and stuff and pictures, it does seem like there is more of a focus on building out these characters more now that we've established who they are.
Yeah. I will say justice for Liv McKenzie. I think she was great. And the way that she went out, as shocking as it was great, but I wanted to see more of her. I wish we were able to get her in another movie because she was great. I loved her.
Yeah.
I agree. Cody, who are your favorites?
I really liked Sam. We'll talk about it a little bit later. I would have preferred if they handled the like ghost daddy a little bit different than they did. But I really liked her. I mean, I really liked everybody. I enjoyed this cast a lot. I do think Jasmine Savoy Brown was another standout for me. And Mason Gooding. I just really liked everybody. I gotta say, I like there wasn't anybody in this movie that I was like, I could have done without. You know.
What did you guys think of Judy Hicks?
Oh, I actually loved her in this movie. It made me really happy to see her kind of come into her own and like be a functioning adult who was just like trying to do a good job with her job. I feel like the cops in some of the previous Scream movies were always just like idiots who didn't know what were going on, and
there's some idiots going on in this movie too.
Well, yes, but I just like, I love when she just like went into like mom cop mode where she's calling her son. She's like, I mean, texting while driving, not good. Don't do that. But she's like texting one of her people being like, I need you to trace my call right now. I'm on the phone with the killer. Like, I loved seeing her be functioning in the role that she was supposed to be in. Whereas in Scream 4, she just seemed to be like, I don't know the right word for it, but she just like almost seemed to be there for a foil for Gale.
Or like a red herring.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I have heard that like a lot of people liked her in this one better than 4.
I would agree. I mean, she's never, even after 5, I would never say that she's been one of my favorite characters.
Mhm.
I didn't particularly care for her in 4 because as much as I love 4, I feel like 4 it did slightly struggle a little bit with balancing the humor and the scare, because I don't don't add humor into the death scenes, like fuck Bruce Willis.
Oh,
Never.
yeah.
But she was a little bit too goofy for me in 4.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like they played her goofiness a little bit better in 5. Like even incredibly like small nuanced stuff, like when you first see her, when they're like, oh yeah, I just got interviewed by your mom, and then like she's like looking at like Dylan Minette's character, and she like tilts her hat a little bit, and she's just a little bit goofy. Like I liked that, and I love I prefer animated films and musicals.
Yes. Yeah, I think that it's a difference between her being a goofy character in 4 and being just kind of kooky in 5. Because we appreciate that about her, that she's just like her own person.
I blame her son for her death because old Judy wouldn't have been killed like that. But I get that like it's her son, and she's like they're threatening to kill her son, and that she like just all her training just goes out the window, and she,
well, also
is vulnerable.
I feel like it's almost a testament to how she would have been effective, because they had to like literally ambush her to kill her. They were able to sneak up on everybody else and come up and just take care of them. But with Officer Judy, they needed to like trick her to running inside and just jump up and get her rather than
fucking Amber.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like we actually had her being good at what she was supposed to do here, which I appreciated.
I'm like different. I feel like she was a bad cop. Because I'm like, it seemed odd to me. Like there was no, like she didn't have a security system, at least to my knowledge, in the house. It seemed odd to me. Like, I guess grabbing a knife when she was in the kitchen, but like you're living in Woodsboro, and now you're aware that there is an active murder spree. Like, would you not have a gun in every damn room of that house? I would have been strapped. I say this all the time in videos. Stay strapped 24/7. Maybe I'll be like walking around with a gun, but stay strapped in some way. And then she like downs a big glass of wine and then immediately goes and gets into a car and starts driving. I was like, that's a little.
There was a deleted scene from this movie that kind of would have added the like how unprepared she was for this, because she asks Dewey to come back and help her in that deleted scene, being like, please help me with this. And then something else happens. I think like the death of Vince comes up, which is why she's like talking to Dewey. But I think that would add it to the fact that like Judy's not prepared to handle this stuff, as opposed to like Dewey being the chief in 4, which would have made her death a little bit more sad, because it was like, oh, she never stood a chance.
Agreed. Yeah. But I will say, like at the bare minimum, like she has a great death scene, a ballsy death scene, and I did like this movie.
I felt it in my colon.
Yeah, like I felt this was the first movie that since part 2 where I felt almost uncomfortable watching the death scenes. Like how quick the stabbing. I was like, leave Judy alone.
You know what it was? It was the fact that she was witnessing all of this. Her eyes were open the entire time, just looking at the killer, and how they left her to die, just like her eyes wide open. It was disturbing. And honestly, I love Marley Shelton. I think she's a great actress. She gives me those 90s nostalgia vibes every time I see her. So like, go her. But she sold this death for me. And yeah, for me, the one death that always makes me cringe besides this one is Jada Pinkett's death in Scream 2. Mm-hmm. because the way that she sold every stab that was going behind her back,
You feel that shit.
It's
very gross to me, and like the sounds that she's making, like actually sound like sounds that a person like. It feels like guttural. Like you could almost like hear like the internal, like her, like the choking on the blood and stuff like that. But also like I think what made her attack even more, I don't know, grotesque is like, because that's supposed to be Mickey, like how fun he is, like he's having with stabbing her, like when he tilts his head back and he seems to really be enjoying. I feel like we really haven't seen that very much. So like the nuance with the specific way that the killers attack them, we haven't seen that since 2, and we got a little bit of that in 5 with like the John Wicking of the knife and how fast the stabs are.
It was brutal, and I do think that, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that death was pretty great. On the other spectrum, what did you think of Dylan Minnette? Because I know him from a couple of things. He's actually been in a couple of things that I've seen, but like Don't Breathe. He was in 13 Reasons Why. I do have to say, when we watched, so we went to go see this twice in theaters. The second time we were at an AMC, and it was pretty like the audience was about it. Like they were responding, they were hollering. I loved it. And we had 2 like teenage girls next to us, and when Dylan Minnette took off his shirt, they literally were like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I was like, this is so funny. I mean, he has the twinkiest body ever, and like he needs a tan, but like, you know what? I totally get it.
I remember, like, I don't think he, like, it's so funny how I always have to explain this to people. Like, I don't think he's like an ugly person. Like, I think he's an attractive person. I'm not attracted to him, but I get the appeal.
You think he's ugly? You think he needs to hide his face with a paper bag?
No, I think he needs to put on a hat. I think that haircut alone is reason enough for him to be on the victim list. But
what is going on with that?
Well, they need to stop. They had that in Scream 5. They had the shit in Nope. Like, leave that in the 90s.
Yeah.
But when they had the shower scene, like, even myself in the theater, I was like, now they haven't had nudity in a Scream film, but I am not going to complain if we get a little bit of ass in this scene.
Yes. We got like a little bit of this like lower back, but you know, what are you going to do?
As long as I can't see the hairstyle, we're good. But I liked his character, though. I feel like he was the most, like, other than Mason, like, likable.
Yeah, I think so too. I also did not expect him to die. I didn't think he was going to. I honestly did not think he was going to be part of the victim list. I thought he would last at least until the 3rd act.
Agreed. That was surprising to me that he died. I figured that they were just going to have him discover the body, and then kill him off later. Actually, I feel like initially I thought maybe he would make it out of the film, and then he would go on to 6, and they would bring like Jasmine Savoy Brown. But I figured Mason would die. Yeah. It's nice that Mason didn't die, but I didn't think that he was going to die in this.
But being that he was in 13 Reasons Why, I should have, because 13 Reasons Why was like a big hit show for Netflix, and a lot of like younger, people were, I sound like I'm old, but like younger people were watching that show. I mean, I saw the first season, but he was pretty big. So it kind of makes sense to like, let's kill off
how
the
big?
Probably, what?
No, I'm just kidding. I said how big.
No,
I'm just discussing. Like, each time you guys are saying something, like there's something like when you were like, "Yeah, we're gonna get real deep in here." I was like, "How deep?"
Oh,
I'm discussing. Okay. I apologize. Continue.
How dare you be filthy? This isn't the horror hour, okay? We're trying to be clean cut,
filthy
clean
people.
Cut here. But
did you say cut? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You see, I can't help myself.
I should have known that they were gonna kill him off, because he's probably one of the popular names in the cast.
Yeah, I remember because I think I saw 5, I want to say 3 or 4 times in theaters, and the one theater I had, like, there was definitely like they were more laughing and yelling at the screen, and had not like Scream 2 level, but like having fun, and there was a bunch of people that were like, oh shit, like when the knife goes through his neck.
Oh yeah.
I will never forget when Judy is on the phone ordering the sushi, and she goes, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Somebody in the audience goes, no, the fuck you won't. And everybody started laughing. And I'm a little bit weird. I probably mentioned this with Halloween Ends, but like people like listen to podcasts, they listen to music and stuff. I rip the audio from movies and then we'll just like listen to that while I'm working or driving or stuff like that. And I did with Scream 5. I saw it a bunch of times, but then I sat there and I did a voice memo and I recorded the audio for the movie so that I could just listen to it constantly. And I managed to get like, that was the recording that I got. So I have that guy on the recording saying that.
Oh my God. I have a feeling like Scream 6 is going to be the same. I feel like audiences are really going to have a good time with it, which is why we have tickets for March 9th and tickets for March 10th. Mm-hmm. So one, we're going to an Alamo Draft House, and the other one will be opening night at AMC, just regular theater.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this in the past where, like, we both love a movie theater that gets engaged.
We do.
I can understand how
like,
some people want to just, like,
so.
watch it in silence, but, like, I love when people are, like, clapping or interacting with the movie a little bit.
I want it to be, like, making sense with the movie. I don't want people just, like, talking out of, like, nowhere, you know?
Yeah, talk, like, don't sit there and talk, but yell out when it makes sense to yell out and be quiet when it makes sense to be quiet. Like, for me, the greatest experience that I have ever had in a movie theater was watching Avengers Endgame. Because people, like, you could hear a pin drop when you were not supposed to be talking, and then when when he picks up that hammer, the theater, I thought the fucking roof was going to explode. People were going wild, and I'm like sitting there bawling my eyes out like a psychopath. But like, I got a little bit of that with 5, and I have a feeling based on everything that I've read and everything. Like, even this morning, they released it's like a 35-minute video where they have a bunch of interviews with almost the whole cast.
Okay.
And the general theme that seems to be running through is like, they said, we don't like referring to movies as a ride, but it's a ride because there's very little downtime, where it's just, they said that we approached this obviously as a horror movie, but they said that they approached it very action oriented.
Damn.
Interesting.
They're like, there's a lot
my heart is going to be
going
beating.
on.
My heart is going to be racing. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Do you think there was anyone miscast in this cast? Sidney Prescott. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I see. It's hard. Like, I don't want to talk shit.
This is the place to do it.
What are you talking about?
I mean, I feel like I didn't dislike Melissa Barrera's performance, but I wasn't blown away by it.
Okay.
She didn't stick out to me like people like seem to really have like a lot of hate and vitriol for her performance.
Oh,
I don't.
I've seen it. I've seen that hate. It's honestly disgusting what I've seen. But like, because it goes to the point of like her physical looks, her race. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's she is not somebody that I would say, because technically I've only seen her in Scream 5. I have not seen In the Heights because it's a musical and not doing that. But I haven't seen her in any of her. Like, there's a couple things that I think she's on Netflix now that I want to watch. And a couple friends of mine have said, like, she's improved, like it's gotten better. But I don't think it's like, it wasn't I don't think she can act. I think that she's a like perfectly capable actress. I just don't think certain, like, people, not everybody has a super expressive face, like just the muscles in your face. Like some people, like how people are like, oh, you have bitch face, and you're just like, no, like I'm just sitting here.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people aren't as expressive, and I think that's what people were seeing and misinterpreting that as bad acting. I don't think she's a bad actress. I just think, especially in the scene where she tells, like, Billy Loomis is my dad. Yeah. I feel like some people crying on cue is easy, and some people it is not. Like, even Drew Barrymore, she was not really able to cry on cue and had to have, because she's a huge animal rights advocate, and she said that she had, in order to get her to cry and make it look authentic, she had Wes Craven between takes showing her pictures of abused animals to get her to cry. And I feel like in the scene with Sam and Tara, like, Tara is just able, like, she's barely even talking, and I'm just like, I feel everything that is going on in your head right now just from your facial expression. Whereas
Yeah.
with Melissa Barrera, I was like, you could tell she's trying to cry. And I was like, girl, don't pop a blood vessel in your eye. Like, you're trying real hard.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for her for in 6, because even in the trailers, I'm like, I could already see more range.
Yeah,
She
I
probably
think so.
really took that to heart.
I think this movie suffers from doing. I don't think it actually does too much all at once, but I think on the creative side, on like the crew side, they had a lot to do with handling the legacy characters, the new characters, the homages to the old, to the new, like pleasing the fans. They had a lot to do, and I do think that Melissa Barrera was kind of like left to the side to kind of do things on her own. I wish they kind of guided her a little bit. Acting wise, I don't think that she's a bad actress. I don't know if you agree.
I was gonna say that I as someone who has a fairly expressionless face, I actually really enjoyed her in this movie. I don't know that I would have had something negative to say about it, because I like what I took away from her performance is someone who like was just really haunted and hadn't ever dealt with the fact that like she has Billy Loomis inside of her and she doesn't know what that means. And
don't you dare! I saw that face.
I didn't say anything.
But like I just I don't know. I don't know that I like read from the character the same thing that you were reading from that. I can totally understand it, but
I will say that the scene where she has her monologue about, you know, finding out who her father is, it seemed a little forced, and I can tell what you said, like she was trying to cry, but also you're playing opposite Jenna Ortega, who is also like it just flows out of her like emotions easily, and the way that it's a little tough. It's a little tough having these two actresses on screen.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel very bad for the hate that she's gotten online, because I feel like it's very undeserved. I feel like it was an unfortunate position that she was in, because she's going to have more of a magnifying glass on her than the other characters. Like, you're working opposite of Jenna Ortega, who, as much as I love the rest of the cast, like Jenna Ortega, from what we've seen, like she could act circles around everybody. So like you have that as number one. But I feel like even if Jenna Ortega was in the position, if she played Sam, I feel like she would have gotten some backlash too, because everybody was like, it was the Lady Gaga with American Horror Story thing, like replacing Jessica Lange. It's replacing Neve Campbell, even though she's not replacing Neve Campbell. Like, it's a different character.
She's technically top billed in this movie. Like, she is the lead character.
Right.
She's Billy Loomis's daughter. Like, she had a lot of weight for her to carry. But at the end, for me, I think she does have an arc. By the end, I do think she lands it with her acting. And by third act, I'm like, yes, perfect. I'm on, like, great.
Yeah, I was fully on board with her by the end of the film. But like I said, like, it's hard for me to answer this question because, granted, I did answer the question, but like, it's, I don't know, like, because I don't dislike her performance. It just, like, it wasn't a standout for me. When I watched the film initially, before I started reading everything online about people complaining about it, it didn't stick out to me as bad. I didn't think anything of her performance. I was just like, yeah, like, okay, she's Sam Carpenter. Okay.
She was good. Exactly. All right, let's talk about the legacy cast for Scream 5. How did you think the legacy cast was treated for this entry?
I thought that they were treated very, very well. And it made sense with their characters, how they were all incorporated. It made sense that Dewey dying was the only way that got Sydney to come back to the town.
Yeah.
When it comes to... Okay, well, I will say this. I did not like that Gail got injured so quickly.
Off the bat. That threw me off. I was like, what?
Yeah, I feel like it's slightly... that's just sort of one of the issues that I have with 5, especially like with Tara, is I love the intensity of her attack in the opening scene, but I'm just like, I don't believe that she would have survived, for one. But for two, I'm like, there's no fucking way that she would have been up running around later on in the movie after sustaining those injuries. And it's the same thing with Gail, where I was just like, granted, she only got a bullet, but everybody know, well, maybe not everybody, but like a bullet to your stomach, that's one of the most painful areas that you can get injured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't like that they sidelined her in a sense.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Where my brain goes is that's the opening kill in the Da Vinci Code. I remember reading the book and like reading the description about how like your stomach acid starts to go down, so like digesting your intestines, and it's like it's really not good. They're also, I mean, anything in your gut area, if it gets open inside your body, it's not supposed to be open and it does bad stuff.
I will say these women have been through 4 of these entries, and that the fact that they don't have a bulletproof something underneath, knock a point.
That was another thing. There was certain things that I would say with the legacy cast that seemed a little, I don't want to say, not lazy. Lazy is not the term that I don't know, just convenient, I guess. Like to me, I didn't, if I try to look at it through a logical lens, to me, it does not seem realistic that Sydney would not have had some sort of vest on, especially after part 3, which we already got a callback to 3 with you got to shoot him in the head.
Yeah.
So like it like she has, a gun case in her trunk, but she doesn't have a vest.
Yeah.
That seemed a little odd to me. Same thing for Gale. Honestly, the same thing with Dewey, with like feeling the need to walk all the way back up and get directly in front of Amber in order to shoot her, which I was like, maybe I could explain away with Dewey as a suck shot. So he was like, we can't miss, so I need to get close. But
he's a stormtrooper on the side.
It does bother me that Gale was the one that caused his death, per se, because she called him, and that's the last thing that he saw was because he looked at his phone. He then got stabbed in that moment. For some reason, it never. The first time I saw it, it didn't. It irked me because I was like, no, like this is what gets you down. I don't know about how you guys felt about it.
Well, I agree, and we watched the movie this week to prepare for this, and I'm like, why can't you just like your phone rings, bang, hello, like
wait for the third ring.
He was there, he was ready.
What would have happened if she didn't call? Like, would have Amber have been dead? Like, was Amber woken up by the phone call? Like, what was Amber's plan if the phone had not rang and he had not looked away? So in that sense, I didn't get that. But the only other thing that I would say is I wish Sydney, I mean, I guess it makes sense for her character, but I wish Sydney would have had a little bit more of a scuffle with Ghostface, like in the costume. And then the only thing that I do not like is I do not like that Amber popped back up after getting set on fire, because I feel like Gale deserved to have the killing
that
blow
moment
for Amber.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
That would be the only bigger critique that I have of it.
I mean, we do get the line, I still prefer the Babadook, which I think is funny.
Especially considering that, like, it's completely out of context here. We understand it because she like was talking to somebody on the phone.
Oh yeah, but everyone else doesn't know why she said that. Like okay,
what the fuck are you talking about?
It would be like we're being chased down a hall, and like we finally like take out the person. I'll be like, my favorite color is yellow. Like, and that's what it would be like to the people in that room. They would have no idea what that was referring to.
That's fair. I think Gale should have had that. I also do find it a little bit cheesy when she does get when she gets shot and she's down, and Sydney's like, oh, Gale, we need to take you to the hospital. Like, you just got here, first of all. And then 2, she's like, no, we promised to finish this. It's a little bit melodramatic. Just the writing in this section. It feels a little too fast. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Plus the fact that like she makes the comment, oh my God, like this looks bad. We need to get you to the hospital. But then as soon as the movie is about to end, they're just casually sitting on the back of this ambulance like nothing ever fucking happened.
That is a really good point. They're wheeling everybody else off, and Gale's just like, yeah, I'm just, got shot in the stomach.
Like Sydney's
it's fine.
just texting, and Gale's like, what am I gonna write about? And I'm like, what the fuck?
I thought that scene when they like pan to them was so fucking funny, because it's just like them chilling there. Like everybody forgot about them. I was like, oh man. I would have thought like they would be swarmed by like reporters, especially Sydney and Gale.
Oh Oh, I also did not really care for their exchange of dialogue in the car when she's like, "None of
Oh
this would have
yeah,
ever happened if I didn't write the book," and the Sydney's like, "That's not true." Yes, the fuck it is.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I will go to my grave saying this. I love Gale Weathers, but Gale Weathers is the real villain of the franchise. Like, none of this shit would
But
probably continue to happen if she did not put it all into the media, where
yeah,
everybody now finds it accessible. Like, Gale,
I think Gail definitely. I think she was a very, very big part of it. But I do got to give it up to how her character has grown, especially the relationship between Sydney and Gail. I think their relationship has progressed so much since the first one, and I do like how naturally that happens. It doesn't happen automatically like in two, where they're not automatically friends. No, they go back to square one, and it kind of takes a little bit baby steps to get there.
yeah, I'm excited for 6 because one of the things that and this isn't a spoiler, don't worry, but in the interview things that I was watching this morning when they were talking to Courtney, is she was like talking about the arc of her characters throughout her character throughout the films, and she was like, one thing that I was really, really excited to get back to with part 6 is she's like, Gail has her edge back, like where she's like a bitch again, and I was like,
Oh,
yes, give me Scream 2 bitch, Gail. I love it.
honestly, I agree. I love her bitchy comments. They gave her so much good dialogue in the past. It was so good. The 5 was lacking though. 5 was lacking her usual bitchiness, and I mean, she had like a little glimmer of that here and there.
Well, I mean, she did also have Dewey die on her. That would have affected.
She should
her
have
as
still been a
Yeah,
bitch. No kidding.
as long as she's a bitch in 6, I'm fine. Because 6 seems to be like not an homage to 2 so far, but like it seems like it's going to be closer to 2 in tone, which I'm happy
Yeah.
about. But yeah, because it's kind of like, I don't know if we're there yet. Wait, are we there yet with the? Yeah, we're talking about the legacy cast.
Yeah, we're talking about
I
this
would
kid.
say I think, Sergio, I think you mentioned this earlier. We were talking about like Sydney. I personally think that Sydney's story was done with 3.
Yeah.
I think after 3, that should have closed out her arc, and then it should have been a proper like passing of the torch film to the new
For
one.
4.
Yeah, because like in 4, Sydney just didn't. I don't know. Like, I'm just not very interested in her character in 4. Like, she doesn't really do much of anything. She doesn't have like. My thing is like, I want characters, those who survive, they should start the movie in one place in their life and then end the movie in a different emotional spot.
Yeah.
And I feel like Sydney does not really start and end 4 in a different spot. Like, she doesn't really have a character arc in that movie.
Yeah.
She's just there. And I feel like 5, she's also just sort of there, but it makes sense because it is a passing of the torch.
Yeah.
So with Gail, I feel Gail has also been sort of stagnant a little bit. So if they're getting back to her more like ruthless, bitchy persona in 6, I feel like that's necessary because at this point, it's like, what else is she doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you're
Like,
in New
she's
York.
just a
You gotta
morning
be a
show
bitch in
host
New
now.
York.
But I did like I did
Exactly.
like her storyline in 4. They gave her a good motive to why she's involved in everything because she lost her mojo. She needs
Right.
to get back to like reporting and solving these mysteries and doing all that, which like propels her to really be involved and help out. But I feel like what did you feel about Gail specifically in Scream 5 with her storyline? Like, do you think that do you think she was even needed in this movie?
No, I mean, I don't think I don't think she was technically needed.
Yeah.
Out of the core 3, I think Dewey's presence made the most sense, and then
Yeah.
Sydney's return made sense given Dewey's death. But I don't think that technically Gail was necessary at all.
Yeah.
Because if you remove Gail from it, how else? Like, the movie doesn't change.
It doesn't, except for that final goodbye. Like technically goodbye, but like she talks with Dewey and has that one scene with him, which was actually really, really nice. But that could have been something that could have really elevated her character in Scream 6. The fact that she wasn't around for his death and maybe like now we center her in New York and we're following what she's doing. That would actually been nice. But yeah, she was there. She was there for Scream 5.
I think like a cameo would have been proper in 5. Like,
because she was on
okay, so like when have her on the news, like or her show. So you see that little clip of her, and then when Dewey calls Sydney and he makes the comment, "This one feels different," which I don't know, like what felt different. You literally just learned about it 30 seconds ago.
Yeah,
like,
I don't
what
know.
is different about it?
Everyone's different. Every Ghostface is different.
Yeah, but I think like he says that to Sydney, and then calls Gail, and we have a phone call with Gail.
Yeah,
where he tells her, "Don't come back here," and the reason, and then he dies later on that day.
And they could have still had that dialogue that they've had before. Like
exactly,
them
have that happen on the phone.
Yeah, I think that would have been fine, and Sydney would then have to have. It would have made more sense for the passing of the torch for her to be the one going there and facing these kids, and what was happening there. But I do agree with you. I think Sydney's story was done. I thought the ending of Scream 3 honestly was beautiful. The fact that she was like with Dewey, with Gail, and she looks back at the door and it's open, but she feels okay. Like, that was beautiful. And then they bring her back, but like the thing is, like, she's been healing. She's been okay. She's writing about her events in Scream 4. So I don't know. I also agree. I didn't think that you needed to bring her back for Scream 4, unless you were supposed to, do something deliberately for her. But moving on.
Well, they had the original like plot outline for 4, 5, and 6. Like she was heavily involved. Like she was a main proponent of that, or component of that. I think it would have been a little bit hokey, like if they actually went through with it.
Yeah.
But that would have made more sense than it ultimately ended up being in part 4.
And I kind of like, I'm okay with her not being in 6 because Scream 5 also was a good ending for her. Like she passed the torch. She had that nice moment with Sam where she's like, "You're gonna be okay." It's kind of like she's giving her tips of being a final girl, and then she's gonna go back to Mark and she's gonna go back to her kids, and this is over for her, and call it a day there. Like I like that ending for her.
Exactly. And I think it also, I don't necessarily like the reason why she didn't come back. But I think I see a lot of people talking about you can't kill off Sydney because it would be so disrespectful to the character arc that she's had and the growth and all the trauma that she's overcome. But Scream, while it has its levels, it is based in realism. And I feel like from a story perspective, it starts to become less impactful the more that you bring her back and don't kill her because she's becoming superhuman.
Oh, yeah.
And it removes the human element of what made the character so great and so strong. Yeah. So to me, it makes sense to have her off finally getting some peace in her life. And then bring, like, if they're eventually going to have some sort of final installment, then bring her back to wrap everything up.
Exactly.
You don't need to kill her off, but you don't need to have her in it. Because at least for me, I know everyone says Scream isn't Scream without Sidney Prescott. Scream to me isn't Scream without Ghostface. And I think the idea of Ghostface and, a cult or whatever the hell it's going to be and the new entries and stuff like that, I just think that makes more sense. That has more area to explore from a story standpoint.
Yeah. Regarding the story for Scream 5, how was the script like to you compared to the previous installments? Like the overall story for this one?
I mean, it was fine. It was fresh, I guess. I mean, I liked the whole, at least with the motives, if we consider that a part of it. I think like the motivation was very present. Like that it's what we're dealing with in our culture right now. And I wouldn't say like overall they did anything completely crazy different with the story in 5. Like it's back in Woodsboro. It for the most part follows the same sort of beats, but I thought it was a decent way, the son of or the daughter of Billy Loomis and stuff like that. Like I liked all of that. I just wish.
Did you like the flashbacks with Skeet Ulrich in it? Like not the flashbacks, but like the
vision,
the hallucinations. I
No.
didn't.
No, ma'am.
They
No,
were
ma'am.
very jarring.
I don't necessarily dislike the fact that she sees him, but I think it would have been more effective. Like you could still have his voice, but have it like be like a thing where like when she's looking in the mirror, she sees him far in the background and his like face is slightly like shrouded in darkness, so you can't really get a good sense of him, but you can still see the outfit, so you know who it is and you have his voice.
Exactly.
But I mean, I don't care whatever level of de-aging, it was still how old was he supposed to be in the first one? 17. It was like 17 going on 40 still. Like
yeah,
you're not fooling
tough.
anybody.
I get that. I mean, it looked like they were really trying to de-age him there. I love Skeet Ulrich. I think he is great as Billy, and I did like some of the aspects of it. I think the funny part of the movie is when like Sam is reaching, like trying to like get Richie off of him, and he goes over there. And
Right,
like,
are we supposed to
what?
root for him?
Yeah, I was like, Billy is still a murderer from the first movie that he killed. Like he killed a bunch of people, and he's also was a dick. Like
I mean, I
he
like
was
to
cheating
think
on Sydney.
yeah.
I like to think at least that like it wasn't actually his ghost being there with her. It was like her, that like part of herself that could be brutal enough to defend herself from Ghostface, or could like just even, it was clear that she wasn't dealing with the fact that like she felt that this was a part of her personality in some way. She was just trying to wall it off and keep it separate. I actually really appreciated that.
Okay.
I've said this elsewhere, but I think that something that I would have done differently about the story with this, something just that I think I would have enjoyed to see, is if Sam, like through these visions, was like if she was actually one of the killers, but she didn't like realize it, almost in like a Malignant type way. And I think that would have been a really interesting take on it, where like she thinks that she's keeping this separate side of her, the like Billy part of her personality, in the back and buried, and then it just comes out. So like if the fight with Ghostface in the hospital, for example, where she thinks that she's like fighting him off, but it's really just all in her head, and
which
it
could
ends
be
up being
something that comes in Scream 6.
Yeah, it might be.
Like she just got her first taste of blood. Like she just got her first taste of killing somebody.
Well, that's like a thing with like she's supposed to, she's on antipsychotics and she has visions of her dead father, and she stabs the shit out of Richie at the end, and you have all of these, and then the knife swipe and all of that stuff. One thing that I will not like, if they are in fact making a new trilogy, which I feel like that's undoubtedly what's happening. I don't want, like, please don't like tease like, will she or won't she become a killer? Like, if you're not going to make her the killer, then don't tease us doing that.
Yeah.
With the original plot of what the 4, 5, and 6 was supposed to be, I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but so 5 was like Sydney was supposed to survive, and she was going to have amnesia for some reason.
Whoa.
And she was going to have, it was going to follow Kirby and Jill, and they were going to be in college. And Sydney will have recovered from 4, but still had amnesia about the whole thing that happened. Like, she does not know that Jill was one of the killers. So Jill got away with it. And they're at college. And Sydney, I believe Kevin Williamson said that, like, Sydney at that point was supposed to be working at the college as, like, a professor or a guidance counselor or something. And throughout the film, she was slowly going to start to get these little tidbits of like, like something about like what happened previously isn't sitting right with my soul.
Yeah.
And there was going to be a new killer that was going to be showing up to attack everybody, but letting Jill know that they knew that she was responsible for what happened in 4. And then Scream 6 would have gotten Sydney's memories back completely, and then it would have closed everything out. So one of the things that I'm wondering if they're going to do is, I have this theory that by the end of the film, Sam will kill somebody. Like, she's going to snap by the end of the film and she's going to kill somebody. And then in Scream 7, it's going to be similar to what I just said, where there's going to be a new killer, but they're going to be like, I know what you did at the end of
okay
6. So I'm here for that if they do that. But yeah.
That would be a twist and another risk that they would take. And honestly, I'm here for it. I do also kind of think that this will be the first Scream that possibly the killer does not die. Like the killer's still out there kind of vibe. Whether or not we find out who it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. I'm like, I that's why I'm so excited about 6 is because I feel like there's only so many times that we can keep recreating the same beats. Like I've already seen it. I have all these films. I've watched them a million times. I don't need to keep seeing the same thing. So like, I'm down for a killer getting away. I'm down for a killer getting unmasked earlier on in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I give me something fresh. That's yes.
Now, for Scream 5, did you call the killer at any point before the actual reveal?
In the trailer. I called that shit in the trailer.
It was the freeze frame of Amber on fire, I think, for me.
There's also a brief 2-second shot of Sam stabbing Richie at the end.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah.
And then I was like, because I pay a lot of attention to costumes and stuff like that, and I was like, Jack Quaid is wearing the blue and gray flannel. And I was like, that's clue number 1. And then we see him get the cut on the arm in the trailer, and I was like, he's the fucking killer.
The fact that they couldn't just change his. Photoshop his shirt in some sort of way. They kept the same color in the trailer, which is bonkers. I think you called the killer.
I did
on before. Well, at least during the movie. Watching the movie.
I mean, so I remember the point that I knew that Amber was one of the killers is in the car when all of a sudden Tara could not find her inhaler. I was like, there are only I immediately was like, we had a scene where it was just Amber and Tara and Sam in the room, and Amber said, oh, here, I brought your second inhaler, and put it in the bag. And immediately I was like, oh, okay, Amber's definitely one of the killers. It was all just a trick to get her back there. And I don't remember the exact moment when I knew that Richie was one of the killers, but I remember it seeming fairly obvious pretty much the whole time, because he was this guy who apparently just met her, but cared about Sam enough to go back to Woodsboro of all places, and was conveniently never around when there were a bunch of the killings happening. He just sat in the hotel room and ate pizza, and then even though he supposedly didn't care about this, just marathoned all 8 stab movies.
I will say I called it out when he said to Mindy, oh, do you want to go downstairs with me to get the beer, right? I thought
because he knows the rules.
He knows the rules. He knows it. You can't just already be an expert of this. So I caught that there. But also the time when he was outside of the door, spying on Sam and Tara and their conversation. And she's like, we got to go out. We got to leave. And he's like, no, I'm going to stay here with you. That's suspicious guy. She's giving you an out here. But they did throw me off during that scene where Tara was trying to find her inhaler, and for a split second I thought that Tara might have been the killer, but that did not come true.
I mean, that would have been a really interesting twist where she's like, oh no, I can't find my inhaler,
which is why they
Amber
leave them.
has it. Although I don't know why Sam didn't just at that point say, well, Amber, put it in your bag, I was there, she said it in front of me.
I would have turned around and I would have been like, let me ask you something, Miss Tara. Have you needed this fucking inhaler at any point in the film so far? As you're being damn near slaughtered, you used it one time when you were cooking some ramen noodles in the beginning of the movie. What the fuck? But yeah, I remember when my mom saw it, I asked her, I was like, when did you clock the killers? And she said that she didn't guess Amber, but that she did guess Richie. She said specifically in the hospital sequence, and she's like, because when Dewey goes and grabs Richie off the floor, she was like, the way that he looks at Ghostface is almost like, oh no, are they dead? Upset a little bit. He's like, I saw it all on his face, and I was like, yeah, that was a telltale sign. And I was like, and even if I had not clocked it from the trailer, I think upon watching it, for the first time, the first thing in my head that popped out was him saying that he had never seen any of the Stab movies, and then as soon as Dewey opens the door to his trailer, like he has like a starstruck look on his face.
Okay.
But then when they get kicked, when Dewey kicks him out and he shuts the door, he specifically says he's more fun in the movies.
Okay.
I thought you didn't watch these movies. And at that
shit.
point, the only thing that you had seen was technically the first Stab that you were watching on Netflix. So I was like,
Are there any standout lines, quotes, favorite scenes of this movie for you?
Oh yeah. All right, let me think. Let me try to go through. So I love the way that they transition to like cluing Tara in her phone call that like shit's going down.
Oh yeah.
Is how he's like, oh, talking to the killer who makes her play a game, and then the way he immediately changes the voice. I loved that. I loved trying to like run through it all in my head. I loved the Dewey sending the smiley face because I have a crush on Dewey, so it's just so cute and adorable.
On
to
Dewey
me.
or David Arquette? Are they one and the
Both.
same for you? Oh yeah,
Both.
I know he's always been hot.
Dewey in Scream 4, especially. Oh my god, that
I
mustache.
oddly like him in Scream 2. I think that's my favorite Dewey. I think
he's
he
really
was
cute in there,
cute.
but like he was having a hard time growing the mustache.
Well,
a little
yeah,
bit in Scream 2.
they did not help him out for that one. That was his own hair.
Wait a minute. Was Scream 4 not his actual mustache?
I don't know. I mean, it could be. I don't know for sure. 100%. No, don't know.
I need to Google this now. But I like, despite me not liking the character, I love a lot of Mindy's lines.
Yeah.
Like I use this clip all the time in my videos where when Richie goes in the basement and she's like, "Well, he's dead." It's just hilarious. To me.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
One of my favorite scenes was when you saw Mindy watching Stab, where it's like representing her uncle almost being about to be stabbed, and like not having the self-awareness that she's in the house that's based off of, watching a scene where her uncle's character is sitting in the same spot on almost the same couch watching a movie where the killer is creeping up behind them, and she's seeing the killer creep up behind her uncle and not thinking maybe the killer's creeping up behind me, after admitting that this is a requel where you would of course harken back to that scene.
Agreed. Yeah. Like I would be curious to know. Obviously, it's a movie, and there's no way to know. But like, she had to have known the house that she was sitting in. She had to have.
Yeah.
Also, you know what? Speaking of which, now that like this just popped out in my head, what did you guys think about Martha?
Martha Meeks?
Yeah.
Why?
I love Heather. No, I love Heather.
Okay.
But I did not buy the fact that she's like happily like, you suspects, my children are in the middle of a murder spree and being targeted. Let me bring some snacks. Like I was like, girl.
I mean, I always read from her performance in Scream 3 that she showed up almost out of what's the word that I'm looking for? She almost out of like a sense of duty to her brother, to say that like, oh, Randy already thought about this. He recorded this. Like, I'm not the movie guy, but like he would want me to bring this to you. That like, I don't know that she would necessarily be the person in the role of calling out like the tropes that were showing up in real life, that like these are the rules of the horror movie. I didn't think anything about the fact that she's just like, I'm just, happy to have everybody together here, have some cookies. And that she's not like supposed to be the person who is calling out the tropes. That's Mindy's role here.
Well, I will say she's not going to be happy-go-lucky anymore, because I definitely think one of the two is going to die. I think one of them is going to go.
I feel like Mindy is going to die. Because I feel like based upon 5, I think Chad is going to end up being the Dewey, where he gets cut up each movie and then shows up in the last like scene like, oh, he's alive.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be Chad, and I think that Mindy is going to get got.
I mean, Mindy could get the Randy treatment where she's like,
it's the sequel.
She's actively like showing up being like, well, this is what will be happening. Like, of course, this is the thing. And then just like grabbed in the back of the news van and stabbed.
Grabbed in the subway.
or in the subway, wherever.
Yeah, I'm very, very curious to see what they're going to do with that, because I feel like there's going to be like a really big, like surprise, shocking kill that nobody's going to see coming. And I would be fine if it was Mindy. But like also like make Mindy like, I know like you guys love Mindy, but like make her like to where like everyone sort of loves her, where like she's got the snarky one-liners and stuff like that, but she's a lot more developed, so that everybody's like, ooh, like Mindy in Scream 6, like she is something, like she's everything, and then just kill her.
I want to say that she might get the Sarah Michelle Gellar treatment, where it's like a likable character, but she gets like a long chase scene where you think she's really gonna make it out and then die like at the very, very end.
Oh, Cici.
I know.
Cici.
But
yes,
honestly,
I agree with you.
one of my favorite scenes. I get so giddy once like I see Cici like start her scene, her whole like call chase scene in the sorority house. Sorority?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorority house. Just love it. Everything is perfection. And she looks so good.
I love how like she's wearing it's like a tube top tank top thing, but then she's got a sweater over it, but it's the exact same material.
Yeah. She's comfy. She's ready to go.
But I love it.
I think Amber's reveal gets me every time.
Oh yes,
shooting
absolutely.
Liv, and she's like, I know. I'm not the killer, and she says, I know. Kills Liv, and then we get this like pan to her face, and she just goes, welcome to Act 3. Call it cheesy, but I love it. I love that.
Agreed. I would say Billy, Mrs. Loomis, and even though like I knew it was Amber, Billy, Mrs. Loomis, and Amber are my favorite reveals.
I love it. So good.
Because I was like that. It was nice because Amber got me, even though I knew it was going to be Amber, but I did not expect it to happen
at that moment.
So I was
gagged.
I was gagged.
Well, we talked a little bit about kills, but any favorite kills? Any disappointing kills?
I think probably Judy would be my favorite kill of the movie.
Mm-hmm. It was the most effective, yeah.
Yeah. One of the slight issues that I do have with the movie is how much damage all of the characters seem to sustain, and then they're just fine.
Yeah.
So I feel like that slightly undercut Chad's attack a little bit, because that was another one that sort of made me feel sick to my stomach, like how much he's getting stabbed.
I was like, you should have died, my friend.
Right? I was like, stop. I was like, enough. But yeah, like he should have died. I like Richie's death, but also I don't know. Like the fact that he's still talking after getting stabbed that many times.
Well, what about my ending?
Yeah, I could have done without that line personally. I mean, of course, like there is something satisfying where Sam was like, "Here it comes," and she just like
I do love the
slits
"Here
his
it comes."
throat. But
I do love the "Here it comes."
But I agree. It's kind of silly that like you just got stabbed in the gut a whole bunch of times, and you're like, "What about my ending to my movie?"
But I love the lead up. Like when she slices him, his cry right before he dies gets me. It's the like right before, like right when she's like slinging his throat is a little.
Agreed. I would say Amber's would have been a contender for the top spot had she not popped up again.
That's fair.
Yeah,
because lighting her ass on fire was everything.
That was so satisfying. Oh my god! I always forget that they break her head with a glass bottle of hand sanitizer.
I've never seen a glass bottle of hand sanitizer.
I've never seen that. I always thought it was vodka, but she yells out hand sanitizer. I just thought that was so funny, and I love that we get our girls to do that kill to kind of really like team up together and fuck her up. The fact that she just goes like, wait, no, I was radicalized, and then immediately switches to like, I fucking love killing Dewey. Everything.
Yeah. I will say another one that I thought was just like particularly brutal is when Dylan Minnette's character is stabbed, where like you can see it, just like I could feel it as it was like going through the neck. Now I will say I am calling foul on the fact that the knife, and you can like see it under the skin. It's very like it's very visceral, but Why is he coughing up blood? It's nowhere near his airway. He would not be coughing up blood. He would instead just be bleeding the fuck out of his neck.
Yeah, that's I think a common thing that people point out in horror movies is that they always are coughing up blood. Like,
Every time.
You were
It's like-
stabbed in the leg, bitch. Like, what? Why are you coughing up blood? But yeah, like it did look cool. But yeah, to your point, I agree with
Just
that.
like to watch the skin like stretch out a little bit.
You know what's weird? That kill has not aged well with me. I think the more I see it, the more I see it as like prosthetics on his throat for some reason. But the first few times that I saw it, I was like, don't want to watch this. It's so long and so gross.
Well, I think part of the issue with that scene, and obviously this is a common complaint with the movie, is the lack of chase scenes. He was supposed to have a chase scene. Like in the script, he gets chased through the house.
Oh,
and
really?
I feel like Judy's death was very effective, but I feel like on rewatches, I'm less engaged once Judy dies when it comes to the son, because I'm like, really the only thing that's cool about his death scene is the knife going in the neck. But beyond that, like the closing of the cabinet doors over and over, and will he be there or won't he, is only at least effective for me upon the first watch.
Yeah.
Upon rewatches, you have to have something else that's like keeping you engaged, and there was no chase scene. So I feel like his death would have more replay value if there was a chase scene leading up to it.
For sure. Continue the high off of that death previously.
Well, and I do agree with that too, because I feel like, I mean, he was so prepared. He said, you know, Judy was like making sure that he like had a taser with him and like was able to like keep himself safe. And he's like, yeah, to the point that all my friends are making fun of me. Thanks, Mom. And I'm like, all those friends who like they're seeing their friend group just be picked off one by one. They're making fun of you for trying to keep yourself safe. But I do feel like it's sort of cheap that like he was so prepared and then just like gets got when he's like an arm's reach away from something to try to defend himself with.
I think he could have gotten away. I think he could have somehow like and just like ran around.
I mean, he could have kicked him in the nuts.
Yeah. He didn't really do nothing.
Or like
It was very
moved to the
close up
side
to,
or
like,
something.
Yeah.
But also, like, how prepared were you? Like, it doesn't matter that you have like me. I will, like, I carry pepper spray. When I move, I will have a taser. But at the same time, I'm like, you're in the middle of a murder spree and you decided to go jogging through your neighborhood with headphones on. How safe is that? Like, why would you didn't let his ass out of the house during a murder spree?
I'm surprised he didn't get killed like on the jog.
Exactly.
I feel like we should mention Dewey's death.
Yeah.
Well, so explain to me, because I always I'm not 100% sure. So she stabs him, goes deeper, and then like stabs him again on the other side, and then moves up.
Pulls them
up.
both up.
Okay.
And I will agree with what you said earlier in this episode, where like when the first couple times I watched it, I did think that like that Amber lifted him up, and so I was like, that doesn't really seem realistic. Upon rewatch, it is clear that she's just like, I mean, it's just a lot of really soft guts in that area of the body, so like you could just like pull up, but that really was like it was almost like to tell the audience like he's definitely not coming back from this. Like, you've seen him get stabbed before, but we're gonna really just mess him up.
Yeah, this one definitely seems like, oh, this is the one that did him in. And I hate it. Like, it made me want to get the killer to be found out and killed even more, because she did it's an honor thing, which is iconic. I love that line. She pulls off the knives and then kicks him, and so he lands, and then you see his dead face, and I'm like, oh no. For me, it was effective. I had tears in my eyes. I cried in the theater. I was like, I thought this day was gonna come, and it did, and I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Nick.
Yeah.
Shoot the ghost face from 20 feet away. You're close enough. You can make that shot.
Yeah, and also, like, I didn't understand, if you're just walking back to shoot them in the head, why did you need to, like, they could have just held the elevator door open while you walked back and did that. There was no reason. So I will say, as cool as the shot was of him, like, walking on the glass and dropping the empty shells
Yeah.
and reloading, like, that's badass. That's really cool. But I don't like the fact that it happened in this completely unrealistic hospital setting where there 100% would have been fucking nurses and doctors everywhere.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
on a private floor. Like, she was just
Absolutely.
stabbed 7 times, and you're telling me that there's no doctors around in case a
Nothing.
blood clot or something happens.
There's not even other patients. There's no other patients in the hospital.
Right. And if it's a private floor, how the fuck is everybody accessing this floor? But putting that aside, I liked how gory it was.
Yeah.
I loved Gail's, like, the where you just hear, you know what? Going back to the score, when Gail shows up and sees the body bag, the score that plays during that piece is really, really well done.
That was effective.
The only thing that I will say is I would have had his guts fall out. Because literally, the way that he gets sliced is what Stu is describing in the first film when Sydney says, "How do you gut somebody?"
Yeah.
You slit him from groin to, like, he gets stabbed and then slit completely up. And I think I could be misremembering, but I think that was actually initially on the table at one point, that they were going to have guts hit the floor. But I feel like that would have been, I don't know, like, I'm just like, why didn't his guts fall out? Like, she just opened up his stomach. But I did like that, killing him. They were like, we have to make sure that you are aware that he's
dead. No way.
He's not coming back from this.
And then they show us the shot of him in the body bag, which I do think that we never see the body bag with his name on it in the tag. So it could give them leeway, but I think he's dead. He's dead.
He is dead, just like Stu is dead. Damn it.
Oh,
He's dead.
All the Stu, like, stands out there are like, justice for Stu. He's coming back for Scream 6. Like, we get it. Scream 3 was originally supposed to be something for him, but...
Listen, I saw a tweet, and I agree with this. The Stu is alive truthers are the flat earthers of the Scream fandom. Okay?
Those are fighting words.
I'm fine with that. Like, it's so dumb. It is so dumb that people think he is alive. There's no logical way past Scream 3 that he would be alive, and nobody in universe would have mentioned that at any point.
And Matthew Lillard is not helping at all, because they were like, hey, is Stu alive? And he was like, I'd be happy to come back. And I was like, we get it.
Well, plus they, like, did that thing with that one poster where it's like the train station map.
Oh, yeah. I think they're just trying to fuck with us, though.
Probably.
Yeah. Now, let's go into the reveal itself. And we talked about this a little bit, but now let's really, the motivation is toxic fandom. And we have 2 people who met on Reddit. And Amber just recently moved, like, her parents moved to Stu Macher's house. And I guess got obsessed with, like, the past of what this meant, and also loves the stab movies. She met Richie, and they teamed up together to kind of give the producers or whoever is making stab movies new material for them to work off of, because the last stab was just fucking awful, apparently. What did you think of this motive?
I loved the motive. I thought that it was, if Jill's motive was ahead of its time, this motive was very of its time. It is something that we're literally dealing with. I don't know how they thought they were going to get away with it, but motive-wise, I thought, like, especially, I think it adds a little bit of creepiness to it, because, like, Amber's in high school and Richie's not, and then they're clearly, like, based on some of the comments, like, they're clearly in a sexual relationship.
Calls him baby. Yeah.
I was, and I still kind of am a little skeptical about it. I feel like I don't get how they are supposed to get from point A to point B of, I'm going to murder a bunch of people so they make a movie about me. And but
no, they were supposed to be the survivors, I believe. Right? They were supposed to be the survivors, and Sam was the killer.
Yeah. I don't know. I still just don't quite get, I mean, there aren't a lot of movies that I'm very passionate about hating to begin with, but that I don't think that there's a single thing that would make me like go back and murder a bunch of people and try to frame somebody else, forgetting that like DNA exists and all this other stuff that would have.
But I think that's what like the Scream movies sometimes are about. Well, pretty much is about. Like the original one is like, what if someone liked horror movies so much that they made the horror movies come alive, right? But they added some nuance to it. They added some really good history that allowed us to believe that motivation. I think this is like, I think the toxic fandom is an actual thing going on in real life. They even mention it. Star Wars. You got Halloween lovers. Like that toxic fandom. They are so passionate that they're willing to bully people. They're willing to say whatever they need to really tear someone down because of their opinions. And I think this movie is kind of pushing it forward that there could be a killer that goes all the way to that level.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like hate it. I wouldn't say that I think it's bad. I just it doesn't like personally vibe with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you really think about all of the other killers' motivations, like there's very few that at least for me, that I would be like, yeah, that's cause of enough reason to kill people. Like at the end of the day, these people are fucking crazy. But I think when it comes to Richie and Amber, I get what you're saying, Cody. And I think the way, because I thought that a little bit at first too. And the way that I kind of view it is if I examine the way that they behaved and their quote unquote plan that they had for this whole thing, it does scream toxic fandom because it is not well thought out. Like there's no way that they would have gotten away with it. The first very sort of like telltale clue that it doesn't make any fucking sense that they like that their plan would have been ruined is when Gail arrives at the hospital after Dewey has been killed. We see Sam and Richie standing there talking to police, giving a police statement. So Richie, if their plan was to blame the murders on Sam, well, you just gave a police statement stating that Sam was in the room with you when Ghostface was attacking. So how the fuck would you have figured that out afterwards? Like there is no sole killer because you've already confirmed that there would be at least two.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. I didn't really think about it as just like a blind reaction out of rage. I was more thinking that it was like that they sat and like really planned this out. But you're right. I think that it's more just like a snap judgment sort of thing.
Exactly. And one thing that I like, obviously, like everybody always talks about how like one of the big things that they look forward to in these movies is learning what the motive is going to be. And I get that. And I think it's just so crazy to me that, and maybe this is what we're leaning into with Scream 6 and future installments now that we're moving away from like Sidney Prescott and stuff like that, is Billy Loomis said it best. Even though he quote unquote had a motive, it's a lot scarier when there's no motive. Like imagine the killer at one of these movies like getting unmasked and nobody knows who the fuck it is. They're just like, who are you? Why are you doing this? And they're like, why not?
Very The Strangers.
Yes.
Exactly.
because you were home.
You were home. Ugh.
Because you answered the phone.
Yeah. That is fucking scary.
I'm gagged. I just gagged myself. Like that would be so fucking cool. That would be so cool. Why are you doing it? Because you answered the phone. Ah!
No. Mm-mm.
I love it.
I love it too. Overall, did you enjoy this third act?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So I like Sydney's phone call, and I like the fight in the kitchen with the women. I don't know if it's like an editing thing. There's certain things about it which I did like. First of all, I did not like Chad's chase scene because it is very obvious that he is on a set. The grass looks fake. Like everything on the side of the house looks fake, and it didn't make sense to me that like I don't know if that's considered third act, or maybe technically Act 3 starts when Amber says that. Yeah,
she says, "Welcome to Act 3."
So we'll put that aside. The only thing that I kind of am bothered with when I rewatch it is I don't like that neither one of the two action sequences that are happening don't like they don't seem to hear the other one like yelling and fighting. Like when Sam is falling down the stairs and then Richie's on top of her about to kill her and then she's stabbing him. What the fuck were Sydney and Gail doing? Like it's weird. I don't like it when movies insert things to make you like he hears Amber getting hit in the face from Tara with the crutch. Yeah. And he goes and calls out to her and then goes to like walk in there, which is when Sam pops up and bites him. So it's like weird that you have a character hearing things that are happening in the adjacent room in one scene, but 5 seconds later, people are fighting for their lives and you don't hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we should have heard, like it makes sense. Like if it was happening at the same time, we should have at least somehow had audio cues to clue us in.
Okay.
Like we should have heard Amber screaming, or we should have heard Sam falling down the stairs and stuff like that. But aside from that, I do like the last act of the film.
I personally think the pacing for me was a little off. I think it was too fast compared to how the rest of the movie was. I think overall, there are some pacing issues with the movie. But this last segment, I feel like just was very rushed. The dialogue went really, really quick, as opposed to like how other, third acts are, which is a little bit more stretched out, really feel like the emotion of what's going on. But overall, I did like it. I do agree. I think too many people survived the movie.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. I do think that the people surviving the movie though was almost so that it could be the full passing of the original cast to the new cast and having it be centered around them now, which I'll be interested to see how that plays out for Scream 6.
I do have faith in 6, just purely based on like pictures and the clips and stuff that we've seen. Like it does seem that there's going to be more character development and more of a focus on their relationships with one another, which I will greatly appreciate, because I feel like that was really like, the first 2 movies are slashers, but there's like so much of a drama element to it.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of character work that is done within the first couple of films, and that wasn't really present in 5 for me. There's a little bit of it, but I am a person of show don't tell. I don't like, oh, your close-knit group of friends that you don't exchange any dialogue with, or I went out and I did every drug and I was a really, big problem child for my family getting into trouble, but we don't see you doing that.
Yeah.
Like I want to see, like, other than you having visions, like how is this actually affecting you? Like, I want to see more of that. So I'm hoping that we get more of that in 6, because like I said, it just wasn't present in 5 to me.
That's fair. All right, guys. That was the movie. We are going to take one more break, and then we're going to come back and talk about the ratings. Stay tuned. Welcome back, gays, schools, and everyone in between. It is now time for our
Desserts
segment. And this is the segment where we talk about the ratings. First, from 0 to 10 scared Cody's on how scary it was. And then from 0 to 10, I'm going to say
Private Hospital Wings.
Private Hospital Wings on how much we love this movie from 0 to 10. Now, let's start with our guest of honor here, Nick. From 0 to 10, scared Cody's. How scary was this movie? Let's go with your first watch.
First watch. I mean, like a 4. I don't really think it wasn't scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
It might even be less than that. Honestly, like I think really the only scene in this movie that I had some tension was the opening scene. The rest of it, I didn't find it very scary. So I would say like a 4.
4. Cody?
I think I would agree with that. I do want to just, call out, because I don't think that we've specifically talked about it yet, how menacing the ghost face in the opening kill was. Like when he stood up and you just like saw the shoulders go out.
Oh, that was really
and,
cool.
like,
Yeah.
I remember looking at it and thinking like, that's fucking scary. But I don't think that most of the rest of the movie made me feel that way. So I would agree, probably a 4.
I'm gonna give it just a notch up on 5 because the opener did get me at points, especially how brutal he was. I think the sequence with Deputy Hicks and Wes, that whole thing was pretty good at, especially with the Judy aspect of it. How like everything was like suspenseful and adrenaline was rushing. I really, really like that aspect of it. But I wouldn't say it was like horrifying. I wasn't horrified. I think I was just mostly horrified as how I didn't know what to expect from this Ghostface, and then like knowing how brutal he was, I was on edge. Even though he didn't really go fully 100 with how brutal the kills were, I still didn't really know as the movie went on.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is, I mean, it was probably unintentional, but I feel like it also has like a little bit of a parallel to the first one, because if you really think about it, like the opening of the original Scream is the most brutal and scary and heartbreaking to watch and like uncomfortable to watch. And I feel like the rest of the film, although it's good, it does not keep up that adrenaline. It does not match how scary that is. It's the same thing in 5. Like the opening is the strongest for me in regards to how scary and tension filled it is. But beyond that, it's just, I don't know, a movie.
I mean, I still to this day, I can rewatch that opener and still think it's horrifying. I do think it's really, really scary. From 0 to 10, Private Hospital Wings. How would you rate this movie overall on, just your review of this whole movie as a whole, Nick?
I would give 5 a, oh gosh.
You almost sounded like Jennifer Coolidge right there.
That is the biggest compliment that anybody could ever give me. Oh gosh. I don't know, like maybe like a 6.5.
That's fair. That's fair.
If I were to give it like a letter grading, I would give this one a B-.
Okay.
Which would correspond to like an 8, right?
Oh, maybe. Maybe a C+ then.
I don't know.
We'll say 6.5.
I think I would give it a 7. I do remember really liking the movie when we first watched it. I wasn't, even though I like predicted the killers, I don't think that I was disappointed by how obvious they felt to me. So I would say a 7. That feels right.
I'm gonna say a 6 because I remember being so unsure once I first saw it. I was just very like, I don't know what to feel. And that's why I'm not taking the reviews so like solidly, because I felt that, and the reviews were super positive when they first came out for Scream 5. Everyone was like, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah. So same things are happening for Scream 6, but I'm still like keeping myself grounded for Scream 6. But overall, what did I say? 6?
Yes,
6.
you said 6.
I said 6.
I think I'm going to update mine. Okay, so I'm going to say, if comparing to the other Scream films, I would give this one a 6. But as a movie in general, I would give it a 7.
Okay. That's fair.
Because a movie needs to at least be a 7 if I've watched it this fucking much. Like
that's true. I was gonna say, like, what made you change it?
Well, it's just like, I don't know, because compared to the other movies, I love all of these movies, but it's out of like, it's kind of like with Halloween, like the original is my favorite movie of all time. And I love, for the most part, every single film in that franchise. But that doesn't mean that I would put all of the other films in my franchise like in my top movies of all time. It's like only Halloween. So as a movie in general, I would give it, a 7 because I like it a lot and I rewatch it a lot. But as compared to the other ones, because it is not one of my favorite, like it's not, in the top 3 for me. Yeah, I would give it a 6.
That's fair. And compared to all like these like requel attempts, I want to say like this one was a solid one. Was pretty good. Yeah. Compared to like some others that may have hit or missed.
What we need to do in this moment is we need to have a virtual prayer circle. Speaking of requels, and the I Know What You Did Last Summer, they better bring it They better bring it. Oh my God. Okay, I just needed to do that. We just needed to have that moment.
They better bring it. But you said is it a reboot or is it a sequel? Or like
For the I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Yeah.
They haven't really said, but I would imagine given the original, I don't like saying like riding the coattails or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
But they refer to it as a Scream knockoff, which I don't refer to it as a Scream knockoff because it literally like it was being filmed and written while Scream was like being released. So I'm like, there's no way. It's just similar. It's got a similar writer or the same writer, but I don't think it's going to be a sequel to I Still Know because of the fact that it ends with her shooting him.
They're gonna retcon I Still Know.
Yeah, I think it's gonna just take place after the end of the first one and his body has gone missing. But also, like, I know that the actor who played Ben Willis, Muse Watson, has expressed like interest in coming back to play the character again.
Okay.
But I'm also like, I don't know how old he is at this point because he was like in his 40s or something back in the 90s. So I'm like, I don't know how old he is now.
You can still have his son commit the murders. You can do that.
Say it. I know you want to say it.
Oh my God, what was the line? Don't you get it? Will Benson? Ben-son.
There you go.
Script genius. Script genius. Well, Nick, I have to say once again, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I know a lot of people were coming down. I was like, oh my God, bring back Nick. Like, that's what we're doing. We love you so much. And as always, you made us think about these movies like in 100% different ways.
Yes.
I talk way too damn much, which makes me perfect for podcasts, I think. But
we did not fail.
So
we're now at the same length as Halloween ends. How we talked about Scream. But that's not fair because we also talked about Scream 6 in between. We talked about the whole franchise in this episode.
This is true. And I think you said earlier that you guys were going to react to it for Patreon. I'm so excited for you guys to watch the 30-second clip of Gail getting chased because it is so good. It's so good.
I can't wait. But yes, thank you again. It's been an honor.
Clever. Yes.
I know.
Thank you so much.
Take a moment to again promote yourself one more time.
Okay, so I have a horror. Well, it's not horror. Okay, we'll start again. I have a reaction channel on YouTube. It is Nicksaysboo. You can check me on social media. Also, Nicksaysboo for Instagram and Twitter. I have a Patreon, Nicksaysboo. OnlyFans. No, I'm just kidding about that one. But yes,
they're gonna search for it. You know they're gonna search for it. There's probably Reddits about you being like, "Does Nicksaysboo has an OnlyFans?" Tell me, please.
Oh, the number of requests, like, have you and David considered collaborating? Not on YouTube, but I'm like, stop right there. Stop. Stop. That is like a brother to me.
You guys need to stop telling people where you're at. Like, you're visiting coming soon. They're like, okay, give us the content.
That's him.
Give us the content.
He talks in all his videos. He wouldn't be killed. He would be killed. He would not survive the movies because he's telling everybody.
This is
he's
my
defying
address.
my fam. Yeah, like. But yes.
Perfect. Well, definitely go check him out, guys. Nicksaysboo channel, Patreon, everywhere. Hopefully he creates a podcast because he's perfect for podcast form, analyzing these movies. We're going to try to make him do that. But for us, you can find us on Instagram at
The Horror Bandwagon.
Or at Twitter at
Horror Bandwagon, no the.
And we also have a website, www.thehorrorbandwagon.com. You can go visit us there. It'll all be all our stuff in one space. And we also have, obviously, our YouTube channel, Horror Bandwagon, Patreon, Horror Bandwagon, Discord, Horror Bandwagon. Our Discord is popping. I really love our Discord. If you go to our Discord, you can chat with us, chat with each other, talk about things. It's a good time. So make sure to go look us up on there. But
and you have merchandise. And I bought some of the merchandise, and it is good quality. Yeah. So check that out.
He's so sweet. He got the mug, and I was like, oh my God, we felt so special. All right, guys. Until next time, we have been your source for horror analysis,
criticism,
and spooky,
and sometimes kooky
entertainment.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.